First of all, the agenda. Are there any additions for the agenda?
Yep, Bill, you have one?
Yeah, I saw the notes on the town meeting, but I just wanted to touch base with you or whoever about the new GIS plotting and, or GPS plotting, and how that's gonna affect what we do, et cetera, and the new coastal manager person.
Okay, yep.
So
That's good to put on.
And what do you have?
I have 6.
Oh, is that all? Okay.
Couple of busy week for violations, so we have 214 Central, work without a permit, 157, 159 Hollitt. Then we have the house at the end of Humrock with all the stones, and they're looking for stone removal, 308 Central. We have Irving Road, lots 3 A&R lots on Irving Road.
Sorry, you want to repeat that?
Irving Road, what were the three?
There's
what?
3 lots at the end of Irving Road, and there's attempt to maybe get building permits for them, but there's some problems with it.
Okay,
Then Edward Foster, there's a draining of a wetlands. And Whitcomb Pines, they're clearing brush and trees on town forest land.
I saw that, yep.
Yep.
And Candlewood, an update on the restoration plan. And one
Peach
revision to one of the ones that's already listed is Townway Extension has asked for another continuance to May 7th.
Okay.
So we have to wait till we get to that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
I make a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No, I don't think so.
Thank you. We have, is it Karens that have asked for
Yes, it's an informal and.
informal
they've
discussion?
asked
Are they here?
Guilty as charged.
Guilty as charged. Come up to the table, please tell us who you are and where you're living, and we'll start the discussion.
Laura Kearns, Kearns, 3 Seagull Lane.
How are you tonight, Laura?
I'm fine, I'm enjoying this immensely.
Stick
I
around.
may come again.
Stick around.
Okay.
Figure that.
Bob Kearns,
And you live at the same place?
same place.
Are you having a good time too?
Oh, yeah. Been with this gal for 44 years, 45 years.
What do you have in mind?
Okay, first of all, I have some pictures that you can peruse while I'm chatting.
Sure.
Oh, good.
The numbers on the back tell you how many pilings are in each picture. What I did is I went down into the wetlands behind our house. We have the first house on 3 Seagull Lane, it's right on the corner. I went down and I tried to get them, you know, right on top of them, and I counted them. We've lived there since 2008. We're the second owners. When we moved there, there were about 5 pilings. They're about 6 feet long. And I just thought, I've lived in Scituate on and off, both of us, since '72. So I figured, you know, the ocean's brought a couple of pilings in. We now have 40. And they're piling up in our backyard. And it's really getting to be horrendous. The tide, I don't know if the tide takes any of them out. We do get some great high tides. We get some tides where I think we're going to have flooding, which we've never had. I'm worried about boats coming in, little sailboats, some kids out in a boat, parents out in a boat. The pilings, some are 8 feet long. Some are been charred, so I know they've been on land. Somebody's had fun burning one and then threw it into the water.
These are creosote saturated.
Okay, let me, can I start?
Sure, Penny,
This
go
has
ahead.
been an ongoing thing. I spoke to different departments today, and this is not the first complaint on it. But the problem being, like on the beaches, we have had some really bad storms in the past few years, and you're gonna start getting the crap coming in, and it's coming all the way in. The good thing about the beaches is after the storm, people walk the beaches, they take the buoys home, they take the lobster pots home, and a lot of the stuff. And what's happened now is that this has washed into the marsh. No, we don't want it there, but Mother Nature has deposited it there. Now, I'm trying not to speak out of school, but I did speak to a few departments, and basically, no, it's not gonna, be removed at this point in time, unless I would say the selectman orders it. That, Al talked about this a few years ago, and we just don't have the manpower to go out on the marsh and haul all this stuff in. It's just kind of Mother Nature doing her thing, and it's sad that they're ending up back there. If they were on the beach, they'd either be washed back out, or people would pick them up as they're going along and use them for firewood and such. But,
Some of them just
in
too
the
big.
marsh.
Yeah. So is this a money thing? Pretty much, a
well,
race of
it
money?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Before you get to short strokes on regarding money or that, for that matter, Mother Nature has assisted some of these pilings by putting them up close to the driftway, making me somewhat inclined to think that they were just dropped there. There are some, and one of the pictures shows it, that they're flush against each other. And I don't, Mother Nature was assisted,
Couldn't line them up there, yeah.
yeah, lined them up
No, I-
perfectly.
Right, and a lot of these aren't really pilings, they're just cutoffs that somewhere somebody dumped them, whether
Yeah.
it's on the side of the road or in the
Right.
water.
water and.
Right.
And they,
then
yeah,
come in.
however they got there, these are like somebody's trash.
Yeah, and it's become our treasure. The other thing is, down on Minot Beach where my son lives, the pilings have come up on the beach,
Yeah.
and they have been removed,
On the beach, it's different.
yeah.
Why is it different?
Because it's easy accessibility. We're out on the marsh, it's really not easy accessibility. Now, I'm not saying that, DPW, we had a change in the guy. I do know, a couple of years ago, we did approach Al, and he said, I don't have the money to do it. And conservation, we don't have the equipment or the money to do it. And,
How about the fire department?
I think, in a sense, it would be something, unless Frank has a better solution.
And I apologize for being late.
That's
So
right.
the issue is getting this cleaned up. This is the marsh along Kent Street.
Yeah,
Yes.
And so, I'm sorry, your request is to have it cleaned up? Or do you
Not
want
just
permission?
removed. As I say, when we first moved there 5 years ago, we had about 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have over 40. It's getting, and it's coming closer and closer to our property, and pretty soon it's gonna be right on the edge of our property. We have never had a flooding issue, but with this barricade, we might get a flooding issue because of it. Some of these pilings have been burnt, so therefore we know people have had their hands on them. They've built a fire or whatever. And we just want, if we could get some kind of program, if we could have the fire department do a slow burn there.
Well, probably if they're telephone poles and.
No, they're pilings.
Well, pilings, but looking at some of the pictures, they probably got chemicals on them, so.
Yes, they
Yeah.
do.
It's unlikely that we really want to burn them.
Okay, I can,
And so, I appreciate what you're saying, they're in a resource area, the marsh, and they don't belong there.
and they're destroying it.
And so there's damage. But again, like some of the other issues with stones on the beach or on the roadway now, we're trying to figure out ways to do that. In talking to the DPW, I don't believe it's an issue for the fire department. Years ago, my dad was a firefighter, years ago, they used to burn off sections of that
Yeah.
so that there wouldn't be the worry about some sort of really bad fire, but they haven't done that forever.
And doesn't it bring it back so it's nicer after you
Well,
burn it?
I mean, there's different trains of thought, but that
We have
was
two people who could speak to that later.
but they used to do that, and one of the big areas was out at Lighthouse Point, because they were so afraid that if that fire got going, it could spread from one side to the other and burn a lot of houses. But to the best of my knowledge, they don't really do that anymore. So as far, and not trying to pass the buck, but, and don't want to interrupt you or
You're fine,
anybody
you're
else.
fine.
No.
So our commission would be the people to give permission to go onto the marsh and do that, and we talk about how to do that in a responsible way or a careful way. In terms of actually getting it cleaned up, has anybody spoken directly with the DPW about doing that?
Yes, I've
And
talked to
I
just about
spoke
every.
with him about a year ago.
And their response?
He told me to have my lawn care guy take care of it.
But it's not on your property.
It's But
it's
at
not
this
really on
stage
your
anyway.
property.
Did you thank him?
Yeah,
Somehow I sense he was in character,
Um,
his response,
Yeah.
and I'll leave it at that.
Can you give us, now this, part of this is our land.
Mhm.
Part is, I don't know where the break off is, but it's coming in close. I mean, it's
Sure.
within 6 feet of my lawn.
Yep.
Can you give us permission to go out there and cut them up and put them in serviceable pieces that we could get some people to cart them away? Right at 8 feet, they're too cumbersome, they're too heavy,
Yeah.
they can't move them. Do we have permission to take a saw, cut them up, and over the months, the years, cart them away? And
Sure.
where do we take them?
Well, again, that's something you may at least get some relief from if you went back to the DPW and say, listen, we're willing to do this, but we really don't think we should have to pay to dispose of them on top of that. If you could take them to either, I don't know whether they really belong at the
The
next,
dump?
well, we don't have a dump anymore.
I know, but I go back to 72, it's
I
a
know.
dump, okay.
It's a lot more sophisticated.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I'm just not sure where they have that chemical, which place they'd go. And so, we could find that out. That wouldn't be a big deal, whether they have to be disposed of at the
Who would
trail.
I call to follow up to find out if you found a place?
I think unfortunately, back to DPW, we could certainly ask the
Okay.
question. I think it'd just be a matter of whether they would get rid of them at the transfer station and haul them off that way, or whether or not they'd go to the place by the sewage treatment plant where they do the recycling. I have a feeling they don't grind them up if they're treated. They grind up lawn stuff and
Right.
brush.
Right, those would probably go in the construction bins at the,
The place is a refuge for some of the limited animals that we have running around.
Oh, it's a neat area.
I saw a coyote this morning,
There's been a lot of overwash, coming over Townway,
yeah.
Harbor Lane, Piggity Beach, and all of that has come into the marsh, and then, of course, it works its way across, and now it's up to Kent Street. And,
Well, we're gonna be going out there in a few weeks to retrieve some of the lighter refuge.
if you're gonna have any amount of work, I'd maybe encourage you to get, we have what we call a minor activities permit. It's just it gives permission to work in a resource area to do simple things. You could get that from Pat or Carol, and,
Can we get it tonight, or should we come up during the week?
Not tonight.
yeah. I just had a question. Is this something that Shapes Day ever gets involved with? Do they ever?
sometimes not,
remove-
they did
It was
clean up
last
a lot
week.
of stuff, but that's pretty
Too
heavy
heavy for,
Yeah.
Yeah.
stuff, for volunteers. Like you point out, it's probably, we really don't want machines going onto the beach, but if people could actually walk in, onto the marsh, but if people could walk in and pick it up, but you may have to cut it in half.
that was last week, so we missed
Right.
the cutoff there, yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
But go ahead.
From the standpoint of financing the removal, would the township consider lending some relief?
We don't have a budget, we had a small budget for maintaining our trails, and they took that away. So, we don't
Out your
have any.
library, huh?
We don't have any, well, I don't know. But at any rate, again, maybe, and I can't speak for the DPW, but perhaps they would at least allow you to dump the things for free, or if you got them up to the road, maybe they'd pick them up.
Have you met the new head of the DPW?
No,
The
who is
acting
he?
head,
Who's the,
Kevin
McCafferty.
McCafferty. And really nice guy, very approachable, so
Okay.
maybe you'll
does he
find,
have a phone number?
I'm
Whatever.
sure.
It would be the
but,
DPW number.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Caffery?
yeah, Cafferty, but actually,
Cafferty.
Mike Breen is the head of the highway and the grounds
Right.
department. So I think between those couple of people, perhaps you could ask them if you could get it up to the edge of the road if they, I can't speak for them, and it would be unfair for me to say that.
Is there any badge in scouting for logging?
We actually had some Boy Scouts come in a couple weeks ago, and
We got them, don't
we,
tell them.
and they volunteered to do some trails, which they have done, so I think he already got his badge. We outbadged you.
And what's
Well, you
the,
know what, that's not, I mean,
You're the
th-
scout.
that scout leader said to us that he had a number of scouts coming along that needed what they call a life badge.
yeah?
And I personally don't know the scout thing, but I think if you could ask around, you could get the contact.
And what's the name of the permit we need to have to facilitate
Minor
Minor
activity.
Minor
activities.
minor activities?
From our office, and we'll work with you on that.
Okay.
It won't be painful, I
We
promise.
appreciate your helping and getting involved, so we won't make it painful, at
Don't
least on
forget
our
we're
end
senior
anyway, yeah.
citizens.
A
Maybe
lot of
I'll
us
get
are.
all the
That's
others.
why.
A lot of us are.
These are the minor activities.
Minor activities, okay.
I was gonna say that the bulrushes, you know, are just I think are really add to the layout of the marsh. But the ones closer to where we live at number 3 are getting flattened by the deer.
We,
The deer come in and,
they're probably Phragmites, and they're probably an invasive plant, but
But the deer come up and sleep at night. We can see them
good.
out
Oh,
there.
that's
Yeah,
cool.
That's wonderful.
yeah,
And the coyote.
That's why it's
not
there.
together though.
A little- yeah.
No, never together. Well, thank you, at least
Well,
you.
good luck.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot.
all right.
we'll come back next year,
Good luck.
let you see.
Yeah, with new pictures.
Thanks
right.
for coming in, appreciate it.
And yeah, can I have my pictures, or do you need them?
Oh, no, you can have them right here.
Okay, thank you. Why, I don't know.
Thanks.
Before and after, why not?
Oh, that's
Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
It's the first thing they.
Next year, if it happens.
Yep. Thank you.
They moved to Florida, they got a lawn guy. Life has been good ever since.
Okay, so if it's every year.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, that would, yeah.
Radar screen, line volunteers.
If there's anybody here from Woods, we're gonna continue that at,
No, we're gonna continue.
Moran, I'm sorry.
Well, you would need a lot of help to
Okay.
do the big ones, so I'm just saying, if it
Wanna do
comes
that real
up
quick?
again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought I had to wait.
it's after 6:30 now.
Oh, all right, all
Make
right.
a motion to
I make a-
continue Moran,
I make a
46
motion
Townway
to
Extension.
continue Marine 46 Townway to May 7th at, oh boy, 7 o'clock.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry to hold you up.
Are we going?
You're on.
You're on.
Great, great. We'll
Best
try
part
to
of, best part of the evening, that's what
Well,
we're.
we'll try to
Yeah.
make
We
it
love you guys.
because
We
we know
love
you
you
have a lot of
guys.
other
Sure.
important business to attend to.
Well, this is pretty important.
You guys are great.
Well, thank you.
We haven't excited again.
Yeah.
Well, that's not.
So, my name is Samantha Woods. I'm the executive director for the North and South Rivers Watershed Association. This
And I'm
is,
Sarah Grady. I'm the watershed ecologist for the North and South Rivers Watershed Association and South Shore Regional Coordinator for the Massachusetts Bays National Estuary Program.
Wow, that's
Say
a
that
mouthful.
in one
basically
breath.
EPA.
EPA funded, but state locally.
This is
Yeah.
EPA doing good.
Yes, exactly.
Great.
Non-regulatory.
Um,
So we wanted to just come in and give this presentation to you because I'm not sure we ever have. We've
Can-
certainly talked to Pat and to others about some of the work and you perhaps read about it, but, we
Can you
wanted-
see that on on the TV? Can you pick up the, great.
Yeah, so we wanted to come in and give you some background on the project that we've been working on for quite some time now and get you up to speed with what we're hoping to do in the future. So the title of the talk is Balancing the Needs of Water and People in Scituate. And the focus of our work here is on the restoration of stream flow and herring to the first herring brook. We just were highlighting it in our newsletter, which I handed out to you, along with my card if you have any additional questions or would like to talk to us about the project later. just, this talk, by the way, has been given in many different places, so we kind of cobbled it together, or shortened it for this conversation. Obviously, you know where your town is. Those who we've been highlighting Scituate to around the state, because you guys have become kind of a model for how you can balance water supply with fisheries management and ecology of the stream. May not know where you were, so we wanted to show them that. You are all familiar with the First Herring Brook. That is your water supply, and it is a combination of both surface waters and groundwater supply. 73% of your water supply comes from the watershed in total. 23% comes from the surface water in the off-season, and 51% comes from the surface water in the summertime. The surface water bodies are Old Oka Bucket and the reservoir upstream that you pass on Route 3A. And those are dammed portions of the First Herring Brook. They are not natural impoundments, they are man-made for your drinking water supply. This map just shows you where the groundwater wells are, where your surface water withdrawals are, and where we have strain gauges in your in that brook. The reason that we're interested in the First Herring Brook is because it's in the watershed to the North River. And the reason she's interested is because we're in the watershed to the Massachusetts Bay. So we're all connected. Just some other statistics here. The current average winter demand in Scituate for your drinking water supply is 1.26 million gallons per day. Unrestricted summer demand in the past has been up to 2 times that. So at least a doubling of that per day in the summertime was previous to some of the restrictions that we've put in place as a result of some of this work, yes.
What is the surface water withdrawal? What
So
is that?
instead of pumping water out of the ground in wells
Yeah.
and treating that, they actually have an intake pipe in the Old Oaken Bucket
Oh,
pond.
that just takes it off the top.
Takes it from the,
Takes it off
well,
the
it's actually
surface.
beneath the surface.
Yeah,
But that, where the water treatment plant is, has an intake pipe. And then the reservoir upstream on 3A is actually kind of a feeder supply. They basically shuttle water down into Old Oaken Bucket and withdraw from there. But they also use groundwater wells to bring into the system. So it's a combination. And these are just some pictures of the structures that create the dam, the impoundments, both, again, Oaken Bucket here. So here's your drinking water treatment plant, here's the rotary, here's Old Oaken Bucket. This is the fish ladder and the dam, which you may be familiar with because you can see that. The reservoir is upstream, and this is sort of 3A cutting across. And this is the dam upstream and the fish ladder, much steeper and higher elevation dam. The early years, so going way back, in 1996, the Watershed Association did a survey of all of our herring brooks to find out what the populations were. I know about it. I was actually a volunteer as a graduate student for the association in 1996, and I didn't find any herring in First Herring Brook. At that point, really, we think they had been absent for many years. Although there's some anecdotal evidence that in the 80s there may have been some. We don't really have any other data about that. So First Herring Brook no longer essentially had herring in it, its namesake. In 2003 to 2007, there was monitoring done by the association, and within the brook, with those stream gauges that I was noting in the map, done with First Herring Brook Watershed Initiative, which was a group of citizens in the town of Scituate that were members of the association, and we worked with them to train them how to take stream gauge measurements, which is what the picture is.
We're continuing to monitor flow today
That's right.
through the Watershed Association.
Yeah. And then in 2007, there was a reissuance of the town's water withdrawal permit, and it was, we wrote comments, and we actually talked to the selectmen at the time, and who are the water commissioners, and we said, listen, there's no herring in the brook. We think that there's problems with stream flow in the brook, because our monitoring will show you that. And we'd like to ask that the town investigate the feasibility of restoring the herring to First Herring Brook, and that was incorporated into your water withdrawal permit. So this is some data that was taken from 2003 to 2005. that just shows you what I was discussing about the stream gauge data that we've been taking, both at Eisenhower Lane, which is downstream of the reservoir, and Old Forge Road, which is upstream of the reservoir. So the dotted line essentially is more natural, unimpeded flows. The blue is downstream of the dam. And essentially what this is showing you is that in the summertime, we're shuttling water. Well, we know that, but we're also hoarding it. So the town is holding on to that water, and then releasing it when it needs it down into Old Oaken Bucket Pond, and then taking it in through their intake structures. But that leaves the reach of the stream dry at some points and then abnormally high when it's shuttling massive amounts of water around. So it's a very unnatural and man-made system because of that. It's essentially treating the stream as if it was just a pipe.
How is that determined? How do they determine when they need water downstream and when to release it? How do they do that?
It's based on the level at Old Oaken Bucket Pond. In order for the treatment plant to work, the level of that pond has to stay within very limited tolerances of height. So when the water starts to go down, they would let out a big pulse of water. And this was how it was operated for many, many years until we started working on this project.
Okay.
You can just see a picture there where it's dry.
It's dry.
This is our stream
Yeah.
gauge. So you can see it's dry in some places sometimes of the year during this shuttling effect, and then, other times it's not. So from an aquatic habitat standpoint, this is natural and difficult to navigate for species that want to live in there. This is more a natural hydrology, river hydrology. You would see our spring flows like right now, got some, snow melt, rain, and we see that curve go up. And then, naturally streams do run lower, but they don't dry out necessarily. This brook would not have been a dry stream during the summertime. It would have been low, and sometimes lower than others, sometimes higher, depending on precipitation. And then we get a recharge event that, maybe a hurricane. And then in the fall and the winter, we start to recharge again. And so that's the natural variability that we would want to mimic if we were going to try to restore stream flow. So why aren't there any herring in the first herring brook? It's got directly tied. It's directly tied.
Fast herring, very fast herring.
It's directly tied
Jaguar
to
herring.
this issue of containing water and releasing it on a man-made schedule rather than a natural schedule. So the herring require a certain amount of water to go over the ladders in the springtime. But what we fail to remember is that they also, their juvenile babies need a certain amount of water to leave. And if you don't have that, then they get stuck up in the impoundment and die off, and there's, at some point, the run goes extinct.
And they're leaving in the late summer and early fall, which happens to be when we have the
Low,
least amount
yeah.
of water.
So it's sort of a competing interest, and so that first was like, good out-migration, and this is obviously the alternative, which is what was happening in Scituate for many years, no out-migration flow. We all seen the reservoir go down. Well, the dam is up here, the fish ladder is high and dry in September in the exit way, so if there was any fish that managed to get up, they weren't able to exit. And so over time, the population just diminished.
And even at Old Oaken Bucket, even though the town was constantly trying to maintain the pond at a certain level, that level is below the outlet of that dam there. So they were holding on to as much water as they could and not releasing it at all at Old Oaken Bucket if they didn't have to.
So a lot of that was done not based on science, but more on fear of losing water. We don't want to, we have to maintain water to our customers, of course. But it wasn't really based on knowledge of what they could or couldn't do. They didn't know the range of variability that they could actually operate within.
Yeah.
And so we, where am I going to go with this?
Modeling.
Yeah, we took out these slides in an effort to edit down.
We did some modeling.
We
It was
did some modeling.
complicated.
It was complicated, and it involved the Nature Conservancy and some other resources that we brought to the table free of charge to the town, and set goals with the town for what we would like to see in terms of stream flow. And the model essentially modeled pre-development, what would first herring look like if we hadn't come here, dammed it up, and built all this environment, paved it over and whatnot. And it showed us what stream flow would have been naturally. And then we took all the data from the water department and looked at land use and whatnot, and they incorporated that into the model. And then they took our stream gauge data that we had been monitoring over many years, and they used that to calibrate the model to what is it that's going on today? How is stream flow today? And then that enables you to have a platform to play with, so a virtual platform. So you can say, what if we were to go get a new well? How would that impact fish passage flows? What we found in that model was that the town had approximately a deficit of about 750,000 gallons per day if we wanted to maintain herring habitat, if we wanted to allow the fish run over the ladder during the times that we needed the water. So, that pretty much sums that part up.
Mhm. Yeah.
So is this still near you?
Don't leave us there.
Either way.
Huh?
Poor fish, don't leave us there.
Yeah.
More, I hope. I hope there's a
Yeah,
part
no,
two.
we haven't even gotten to the
Yeah.
good stuff.
No.
So, in 2010, we got this priority project status through the Massachusetts Department of Ecological Restoration, which I know you've worked with on other dams that you might be removing. This one, obviously, we're not removing the dams. We're talking about how can we, we're not stopping the water supply here. We're going to try to work with the infrastructure that you need. And then February of 2011, we received a $10,000 grant from DER for outreach brochures. With the modeling that we did, one of the things that we identified that was an easy thing for us to do was water conservation. How are we going to get 750,000 gallons per day? Well, we know that there's not many places where you guys can find sources of water. And water conservation is the cheapest and most effective way for us to do that. And it happens to be in the summertime when we need the water that we could do some water conservation. And so the watering restriction that happened in 2011, I think,
Yeah, this is.
was put in place, and we created an operation plan for the division, and we put in some radio water meters so that the town water supply can get more instantaneous readings on usage. So now that's the state.
Yes.
I always let her do the graphs.
Yeah, so this just shows what the daily pumping for the town looked like prior to the watering restrictions. So this is 2007 through 2010. And the blue bar shows the winter average, which through that period of time was about 1.4 million gallons per day. And then in the summer, it was about 2.37 million gallons per day. So it jumped up by about 1 million gallons per day in the summer. And it turns out that the top 5% of water customers are using about 20% of Scituate's water, which is equivalent almost to the amount of water that the lowest half of the town are using. So half of the town is using the same amount of water as the top 5% of users. So that would be a good place to try to find some savings in those high water use areas. And it also turns out that most of the town does not really increase their water use that much during the summer when it comes down to it. The top 10% increases their water use about 7%. The top 5% increases their water use by about 25%. So not only are they using a lot of water all year round in the summer, that big chunk of water that they're using gets amplified even more compared to the other people in the town. So there's a big amount of water to be saved. So starting in 2011 and continuing in the summers of 2012 and 2013 and also this summer, 2014, there's a lawn irrigation restriction in place. It applies to irrigation systems only, runs Memorial Day to Labor Day, and you can water 1 day per week based on your voting precinct. It's based on a pilot effort from Franklin, Massachusetts, where they use trash days. Scituate doesn't have trash days, so we had to do voting precincts. And all water customers received a brochure that told them what day they could use their system. And so the black line here is the average monthly water use prior to the irrigation restriction The dotted line is the average monthly water use after the irrigation restriction. So there was an improvement in the off-season of about 0.17 million gallons per day, or 170,000 gallons per day. And that was because of some improvements made by the water department, things like leak detection and better pipes. And the savings in the summer was about 550,000 gallons per day. So if you subtract out that year-round improvement, that leaves you with about 380,000 gallons that was saved due to the irrigation restriction. And it also turns out that that decrease was mostly seen in those segments of the water-using population that were using the most water. So, 'cause we found that the top 5% contributed to more than half of the savings due to the irrigation restriction, and the top 10% contributed to more than 3/4 of the savings. So that irrigation restriction was cutting that peak off, those really high water users.
Is this just residential or residential?
Yeah, this is just
business?
residential,
Okay.
yeah. Yep, yeah, all the businesses and everything are taking it.
Sure, so, this just last year?
Yeah.
Yes.
So last summer, as part of a grant from the Division of Ecological Restoration, we put up a sign at the water treatment plant on 3A to try to link the environmental, the environment, what's going on in the environment with what people are doing. And so we put this nice sign up to try to educate people about the connection between their water consumption and the herring runs. And during the summertime, pretty much, you're probably gonna see this: low stream flows conserve water. And then in the off-season, like this time of year, we have enough flow, and it'll say, thank you for conserving the green sign. So it's just trying to make that connection for people that that water is a finite resource for us all, and that we're trying to share it not only amongst ourselves, but with other creatures that I think we'd like to also have here.
Yeah. And we can conserve water and make an impact.
So also part of what we did was put together an interim operational plan for the work that we're doing with the water supply, with Jim DeBarros' department. So we put in the irrigation restriction, that saved us some water. We have a seasonal stream flow shutoff trigger, which means that at some point, water gets shut off to the stream. People do come first, public safety comes first, and at some point, the water may drop below a level if we're in a real significant drought that we just can't provide stream flow downstream of the reservoir and Old Oaken Bucket Pond. There's the existing fish ladder at Old Oaken Bucket Pond is traversable, although the percent efficiency that we can run it at is not fabulous, particularly in the out-migration. In the out-migration period in the fall, we're maybe about 40%.
I think so.
Yeah. The fish ladder up at the reservoir is non-operational, in large part because of this difference in height after the summer usage. And it's interesting, the story about that reservoir is that if you look back in the history of the building of it, it was built in the mid-60s, and it was built as a backup water supply, because we kept looking at this ladder and at this dam, and how are they ever going to make this work? What were the engineers on when they did this? Because there's just no way this was ever going to work. And, it was because they never intended the water to be used to the volume at which it became used at over time. This town of Scituate's population grew. Back in the 60s, they didn't have the same kind of oversight over environmental issues as they do now. And over time, it just became a more and more part of your water supply, and we lost that resource. So right now, it's not operational.
Sure, I guess so. So when all of this work was being done, we wanted to take it a step at a time. So we started with trying to see how we could improve passage into Old Oaken Bucket Pond. So the first thing to do would be to actually release water from Old Oaken Bucket year-round. And that started in October of 2011. And that was the first time that flows had been provided in the fall for intentionally for quite a few years.
And it was upstream. So
Yeah.
we also
Right,
kept the,
yes.
in-between stream between the two dams. Now with
Right,
maintaining
yes.
a natural flow in the
Yeah,
summertime,
I don't-
rather than that.
From the reservoir to Old Oaken Bucket. Yep. And we were faced with a good challenge in adaptive management in the spring of 2012. We happened to have pretty low flows and not a lot of rain in April. And the unusual dry period in April, when we would usually have high flows, meant that we needed to actually make a change to the plan. We were trying to have 8 inches of depth essentially over the fish ladder, and we had to kind of bargain down to, I think we ended up with like 5.5 inches or something like that. We were like, how about 6? No, how about 4? About 5.5. And then that fall, we worked with the town to install a weir in the Old Oaken Bucket fish ladder, which essentially is a board with a notch cut into it and allows you to maintain the proper depth of water, but over a narrower width, so you can actually be releasing less water and still have that depth. And surprise, surprise, when you release water, herring will show up, although they're in the single digits. So in 2012, we documented 9 fish coming up the fish ladder, which was fantastic because it was the first time fish had come up that fish ladder in decades. Last year, there were 3 fish that came up the fish ladder. And this year, I have volunteer herring counters out there. I think I have 9 counts per day, which is the maximum each day. And we'll see what happens this spring. Old Oaken Bucket and the reservoir do have a capacity to hold thousands of herring if we're able to get them up there. So we'll see how that goes.
How do we entice them to come back?
Flow, just providing water. Yeah. So the next step in the project is going to be trying to get fish up into the reservoir. So last year, the town had a grant from DEP through the Sustainable Water Management Initiative, and that went into putting better weirs on Old Oaken Bucket fish ladder, as well as investigating if it would be feasible to try to regulate the water level at the reservoir a little bit more. So instead of having it drop so much or go up so much, to really try to control that and keep it a little bit more even, kind of like what happens at Old Oaken Bucket. So here are those weirs at the Old Oaken Bucket fish ladder. So you can see it's a notch that allows you to concentrate that flow, so it's a little more efficient.
Remember, this would be the fall.
Yes, this is the
babies-
fall outlet.
Babies are much smaller here.
They can slip through that little hole there. And that's Rick Mosca, who runs the water treatment plant. But the water division's been a fantastic partner in this project, which is why we highlight the local connection. Do you want to? Sure. Talk about
So, leverage funds through partnerships, the Nature Conservancy, approximately $143,500 of free service to the town of Scituate. The DER program for the state is, we've leveraged another $21,500 for helping us with analysis and putting in that sign. And the town of Scituate themselves have given a little bit of cash to help, get in grants. $5,600. We got in 2013 a $55,000 grant that did that feasibility work up at the reservoir, so we could kind of see what could be possible up there in terms of getting the fish back up into the reservoir. And then just recently this spring, which is the cover story in our newsletter, focuses on the latest grant that we were awarded with your town, or your town was awarded for $54,500 to continue that work up at the reservoir. We're doing a little bit more ground truthing of the feasibility study and moving having some discussions with Massachusetts Division of Marine Fisheries about the alterations that we might make up at the dam on the reservoir. We're gonna lower the fish ladder exit way. That's really part of what we would have to do, and talking with the Office of Dam Safety to make sure that whatever alterations that are done are in compliance with their rules and regulations, and reaching out to the public. We'll be doing that probably in June. We're gonna be meeting with the Water Resources Committee next Thursday, and then we'll probably have a public meeting in June once we get some more of the data about what could be done to bring the fish back up into that reservoir. So countless contributions from all of these partners, plus ourselves, the Watershed Association and the Massachusetts Bays program. But really, we couldn't do it without the town's cooperation, and I want to just sort of emphasize how important your water department personnel have been in this. And it really does set up your town in a good position. Right now, the state is going through this rather painful process to review and revise the regulations around the Water Management Act to do just what we're doing, which is to provide a balance between stream flows and water, the needs of people for water. So I think it puts you in a good position with your permits. You certainly have been touted around the state as an example of, making good progress on doing something proactively.
And also touted along the entire Gulf of Maine, which is Atlantic coastal Canada and down through Massachusetts. Scituate in 2012, won the Gulf of Maine Council for the Marine Environment's Sustainable Communities Award. That was the first year that award was created, and it was created by the province of New Brunswick, who thought they were a shoo-in. And we came in and swept the rug out from under their feet, and I went up and accepted the award on behalf of the town in Canada, and then brought it back to the water department.
So the next steps that I sort of mentioned, we have this grant to look at what we can do up at the reservoir a little bit more closely. That part was going to be more expensive. There's no doubt about it. Trying to alter that dam is going to be somewhat costly. The gains that we might be able to make in terms of helping the town, not only could we get more fish in, but the fish are kind of a canary in the coal mine for us, and so it helps the town have a little bit more resilience in your water supply. You're kind of living on the edge when you're draining your streams and your reservoirs down. So we're hopeful that providing this kind of assistance would also help, and we've done some analysis on what it could do in terms of offering some more buffer to your community's water supply in the case of an emergency drought or anything like that. So I think that kind of concludes it, but thank you for the time. I know that you guys have a lot of work to do.
Samantha, could I just ask one question? It's probably a silly question, but
There are no
If-
silly questions.
if we stocked it with herring, would they come back?
We talked to the Division of Marine Fisheries about that, and, the thinking from the fisheries scientists and the community of the regulators is that they really don't want to stock things. We did that so much that we've really diluted the genetics of these, or, remember, they're not as strongly affinity towards their spawning. Yeah, they're not as like a salmon who wants to go not only to that stream but to that rock that he was born on. So herring do though want to come back to their natal spawning grounds. They have a little bit more leeway within there, but the genetic population, the genetics of it, the state really doesn't want to keep moving fish around. They want to see if it can be naturally recolonized first. So that's why, and we have to show them. I mean, it's been 20 years where the town hasn't been allowing this flow to happen. And really, I think DMF wants to see good behavior.
Yeah, it's like being in a probationary period, Can you follow the good practices of providing flow before?
Yeah.
Who is regulating the irrigation, the placement or the requests for new irrigation systems in new housing developments, et cetera, who does that go through? Do we know?
Permitting process for that?
Well, I think it goes through the water department, but they haven't been that concerned whether it's a handheld watering or an irrigation system. I don't, you know, I know that.
I think that'd
they
be
issue-
a
The only,
great
the only
place to
permit
start.
that I know that you have is probably, I mean, you have to get a backflow prevention, so that you're
Yeah.
not contaminating water supply. But, so there is some process by which they can monitor that, but I don't think that, you know, they can't say no.
Yeah, and there's not documentation on every system that's out there.
That's right, we don't really know.
We don't know, I mean, now that with the backflow preventers, there's a little bit more information,
Yeah.
but.
But it's something that the town should think about.
I mean, because as Frank mentioned at the meeting, we have some giant projects coming up in the town, you know.
They really ought not to be permitting any more irrigation.
But I don't know whose purview that lies under, because I don't think it does ours.
Well, but the other issue is, forget irrigation systems, if you keep building developments and houses, your numbers aren't gonna stay flat. You can conserve, but you keep building
Right.
houses,
Then it-
you're gonna need another well or
Yeah,
another
yeah.
source of water, because your consumption is gonna go up.
The demand's so high.
Well,
We've got a lot coming up.
certainly something that the town should be thinking about, and would be happy to talk to you more about what to do about that. Those are challenges. for
You're
sure.
meeting with the water resource people next week?
Yes, a lot of resources.
Hey, Richard, any questions?
Any other questions?
Can I say a couple of things? So with the herring to spawn or whatever,
Yeah.
does that happen in the Old Oak and Bucket Pond, or do they really need to get like up into the tributaries of the Herring Brook? Do they have to get beyond the Route 3A and the Tack Factory Pond, or?
Well, there's two different kinds of herring. There's alewives, which would be typically more in a pond environment that they would spawn, and they would spawn in either Old Oak and Bucket or up in the reservoir, and maybe even on a quiet part of a stream. And then there's bluebacks, which is another species of river herring. And those typically would spawn within the tributaries and within the stream itself and the running water. So, but both would, you know, all of the habitat would be potentially utilizable if we can get them over the barriers and get them back out.
There's some evidence that shows that the further upstream a herring can travel, the more successful it will be at spawning.
Yeah, the strong survive, kind of.
Sure. I just wondered, I mean, in the interim of getting the larger reservoir worked out, by keeping a flow at Old Oak and Bucket, at least we're getting some fish into, yeah, as a start. I mean,
Sure.
it's not the end
a
all,
couple
but
thousand is
You've
what
seen the
I'll-
numbers
yeah.
there,
Yeah,
so the
it's
reservoir
small.
offers a lot more habitat, obviously.
I don't disagree, we want to get them there, just thinking.
Frank's thinking baby steps.
Well, it takes, I mean, you've certainly been at it a long time, and we're fortunate that folks like Jim DeBarros and some others who really grasp
Yeah.
that and understand it. And I think it's something Scituate, Paul was alluding to, we have to do more about, unfortunately, there's gonna be more water use regardless of, do everything we can to restrict it, but with more, and hopefully irrigation, people will have to turn to other solutions, either different landscapes or whatever, but the town really needs to be looking at some other sources of water.
Well, I think I just want to remind you again about that winter to summertime number. So we've got 1 million gallons per day more. Now granted, a lot more people come to Scituate in the summertime.
Right.
So there's that population increase that you experience. But with a relatively minor irrigation restriction, we saved 380,000 gallons.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty significant, and I don't think that the quality of life has been damaged. So, you know, I think there's still room there
Okay.
to do more. You know, again, baby steps, right? We don't want to take steps that would have a bad impact on.
Well, I mean, but people have to realize they have to make some changes. I mean, some of the plantings and things that have done require so much water.
Well, part of it too is in the new subdivisions. You know, what happens is, as you're well aware, people, when you build a new development these days, it's clear cut, you know, all the good stuff is taken off the top, and then maybe this much soil is put back on, and that, and is seeded, hydro-seeded, and it just doesn't, in older neighborhoods, you're not seeing the same kind of irrigation problems because they have more established landscapes with good soils that don't necessarily have that problem. So, you know, one of the things that might be good for the town to look at is incorporating into their subdivision rules and regs and permitting processes, how can we maintain better landscapes? How can we keep the soil, you know, so that it doesn't become a problem for, you know, the water supply? How can we retain planting? How can we encourage better landscaping at the beginning? Because it's not the homeowner's fault if they buy a nice house and they go in, but they've got an irrigation system.
And they
It's
often
human.
don't know, they don't
But
know
there
what
is a,
needs to
it
be done.
it is
Human
too
nature
bad,
is to use what you own.
but sometimes
So-
people don't grasp
That's
what
true.
the
That's
whole,
why we're here tonight. You know, maybe
Right.
they'll play this, and you know, we got to keep educating people
Right.
about what that impacts are.
I mean, I can remember a few people being so annoyed that they could only water once a week that they left the damn thing on almost the whole time, just to make a point. It's like, well, I'll use the same water.
Sweet.
I was like, really?
Well, I mean, that's
So it is,
Yeah.
what you're saying is hopefully people will understand.
Yeah.
It isn't just something that's nice to do, it's critical.
yeah,
And as you point out, the fish are really the canary in the,
right. And in a town like Scituate that has had a fishing community, these fish are incredibly important to what's going on out to sea.
well, they're food for other fish and
Yeah.
the whole
Stripers.
piece is
Yeah.
huge.
Right.
A quick question that, like, we're working towards the removal of the dam at
Hunter's
Bound
Pond.
Brook,
Hunter's Pond, yeah.
Hunter's Pond.
Yeah.
And then our third water stream, which is smaller, is Scituate Brook.
Yeah.
And has there ever been any, or anybody seen any activity? I mean, it goes up into a much smaller area.
Scituate?
Yeah,
I'm sure at one point that everything was teeming with herring. I don't know, you know, I don't,
We don't
no
have
one
any
has
data.
looked at Scituate Brook. I
I'm
mean,
just-
Bound Brook, there's nothing really coming.
Right.
You know, so.
would there be, I mean, are you expecting that once that dam is removed, the possibility of fish coming back
Oh,
up?
I think so, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I just wonder if there's other things that, this is the big one, obviously, that, First Herring Brook is,
Well, there's a lot of habitat in the Gulf River system,
And
and
I think
that,
that actually, you know,
and
I
they
never
can
would have
get,
thought that this was the one that we would work on,
Yeah.
quite frankly.
they can, and
Wasn't on the top of my
herring,
list.
herring can get all the way up into the Erin River Reservoir, because there's functional passage at Buttonwood Street and at the reservoir. So that's really the first and almost only impediment on
Right.
that system. So once that dam is out, those fish can have a lot of habitat.
that'd be awesome.
Of course, again, the run is gone, so
Yeah.
it's gonna take time
That
to
we need
establish.
explorers to come
You
back.
need, so they'll, yeah, some of the fish will go and scout out new habitat. And so if you provide that flow and they find its good spot,
That's so cool.
hopefully, the population will grow. Hopefully the three that went in were,
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
different.
heard-
And that's what the first year we said, we hope they're doing what they're supposed
Frisky, yeah.
Remember, when we're counting, just to kind of put it in perspective, when we're counting three, that means that maybe 1,000 made it in. You know, we're
Yeah,
not
right.
seeing all of the fish. That's
Right.
just what we counted
Yeah.
during our.
But if you go to Hanover or something, I mean, you, up by Ford's, Ledman's Pond, I mean, you can,
Lunsford, yeah.
yeah, you can,
Oh, yeah,
See
they're
them.
there now.
That's
And in
great.
Pembroke, yep,
And in Pembroke, yeah, that run is about 100,000.
Well, they used to be here.
yeah.
I can
Yeah,
remember
that's why
as a
they named it
kid
First
down-
Herring Brook.
Well, but I can
Now it's just
remember
First
down,
Brook.
Penny used to salt them up.
I did.
Well, thank you again for your time.
Thank you, ladies, it was excellent.
Continue working.
Penny, wasn't that about 80 years
Excellent.
ago?
Huh?
Wasn't that about 80 years ago?
Yeah, it was.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
Thanks a lot.
Welcome.
We're always glad to come.
But thanks for all your, I mean, this is huge, and we really appreciate,
Normal.
Yeah, I know a lot about.
As a first
dude, yeah.
Second in the north.
You probably know more than you wish you knew.
Oh, I-
Okay.
You're all,
it's all anonymized.
Well, you're packing up, I'm gonna start the next
Go ahead,
thing.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
very much.
no, these are the agenda.
This is Sullivan, 11 Ocean
Yeah.
Drive. On April 16th, 2014, during the 6:15 PM meeting. Thank you again.
You're welcome. Yes, good luck for the rest of your.
Thank you. During the 6:15 meeting, the Town Hall Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Douglas Sullivan for determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands bylaws to build a deck on property located at 11 Ocean Drive, Humrock. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good,
Good
thanks.
to see you guys again.
Yeah, you were at the last meeting
Yes,
for an
I was, yeah.
informal. Good.
So my name is Douglas Sullivan. My wife and I own 11 Ocean Drive in Humrock, Mass. We maintain it as a summer home for our family. And our primary residence is in Hopkinton, Mass, the start of the marathon coming up. And so I have contracted Ken Kirby from Kirby Construction to help me out with this. He was gonna be here tonight, but I gotta apologize on his behalf. He had a personal issue come up, so he wasn't able to come. But I can reach him if need be. So with that, do I briefly describe the project? I think if, so the project is really to maintain it as a very seasonal property and add a deck to the property. So there's a deck on it now. And there, we have an attachment where I outlined what the existing deck looks like. And just looking to do an expansion to wrap it around to pick up a side door on the cottage and run it the full front of the cottage. And I have that on the attachment, page 1, I think is the best picture of what the deck is looking like. And I think the last thing is, you know, our intention is to hand dig sonnet tubes to support the deck.
He spoke well.
This is the side of the street that's not towards the water. It's-
Correct,
Yeah,
yeah,
I know,
yeah.
So this is no.
Yeah.
But
No-
do anything
no
yet, right?
questions.
So, Go.
I'm good.
Rich? Paul? Lisa? Pat?
I think a few people from the committee went out there
Yeah.
too. and looked
Yeah,
at it, so.
saying it.
Anybody in the audience?
Make a motion for a -3.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
So, on that, just, are there any other concerns you're gonna be
No, they're
facing?
gonna hand dig it, it's just will be basic.
Yeah, it's up high.
It's all
it's
hand
across the
dig,
street.
it's
Yeah.
not, it really is no danger of doing anything bad.
Well, I've learned a lot about herring here. I want to make sure that
Well, your water comes from Marshfield, but
Does
conserving
it really? I was
Yes.
wondering that myself. It does?
But
Okay.
being conserving it would still be a good idea. Yeah, shower every other day.
I actually have no lawn. I keep it as beach grass. It's,
Well, that's what a beach cottage is,
right, yeah,
on the
simplicity.
beach.
Simplicity.
Thank you.
You're all set,
Thank
good
you.
luck.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you.
You wanna keep that one in the
I
floor?
just wish they were already.
Keep moving quick.
No,
Okay, I'll bring them.
well, that's why we're kinda running amok here.
Yeah, Carol isn't in.
Are we recording this, or just,
Yes.
just
They
watch
are.
TV?
No, well,
Yeah.
TV is on it.
TV is,
And then she's gonna transcribe from the
because she can
TV.
watch it on YouTube.
Um,
or
On
whatever
April
that is.
16th, 2014, at 7 PM, the Town Hall Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing on the Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws to amend the order of conditions issued under DEP file number 68/1654 regarding the application of Paul and Christine Schwartz to move the dwelling forward, regrade driveway to eliminate retaining walls and culvert, reduce fill and impervious area on property located at 14 Kimberly Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening.
Good evening.
Get the right one.
Frank, you want
Anybody that's behind this interested in seeing it? Okay. You know, why don't you, can you get the easel, the first one up here, maybe? Can you see it?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. Can you see that all right?
No, I can see it from here.
That you have these butter notifications. All right, thank you. For the record, my name is Jeff Bassett. I'm an engineer with Morse Engineering, and I'm here for a request for an amended order of conditions for a single-family home at 14 Kimberly Road. I'm here with Paul and Kristen Schwartz, who are the property owners. They live adjacent to this property at number 16, and they own this property as well. This property is about 2 acres in size. It's abutted by the Schwartzes, by 2 developed residentially zoned properties here and here, which are at the end of Newfield Road, and then 2 residentially undeveloped properties here and here to the north and the northwest. The wetlands on this property were previously approved under the order of conditions issued prior. However, it's been a while, so we had our survey crew reflag the wetlands based on the approved plan. We then had Brad Holmes of Environmental Consulting and Restoration walk the line, and he wrote a report confirming that the line has not changed. We also, Pat went out and took a look at it, and I think a couple of members of the commission did as well over the summer. The intent of this amendment is, this plan on your left is the plan that was previously approved.
When was this approved, Jeff?
It was back in 2002. The Schwartzes have been diligent. They've had 3 extensions, and then with the Permanent Extension Act, it's still valid for a couple more years. So I'll first explain the approved plan. The blue line is the wetland. The 50-foot buffer is shown in red, and the 100-foot buffer in green. And as you can see, there's a little bit of a wetland crossing here with fill and replication here.
Has the replication
That was our
been
first
done
one.
yet?
No, it hasn't. So there are kind of 2 items that we're proposing as part of this amendment. First, we'd like to move the house forward, and in doing this, we're not encroaching on the previously approved limit of work. You can see they're working right up to the 50-foot buffer, but we are moving the house closer to the left.
Recharge area.
The Schwartzes are aware that they are going to have a limited front yard, and they won't have that nice front yard, but it will open up the backyard. And the real benefit here is that if you look at the aerial, this property is here, and where that house is proposed is sitting back here quite a bit. And it's going to be immediately in this house's backyard, and it'll feel like it's in their backyard. So they want to move it forward to as far as they can. The other item is that on the approved plans, they have retaining walls on both sides of the driveway, all the way back, and then along both of the sides, all the way back to this detention basin out back. And the idea of those walls was that so all the runoff from behind the house will flow over land to that swale in the back. The walls really are not necessary. We can accomplish the same thing by doing swales on either side of the property, which is what we're showing here. And we're not altering the grading of this basin in any way. The contours are the same. Along the front of the property, they had a garage at the first floor. We're proposing to revise that and do a drive-under garage. And they had the entire driveway pitching towards Kimberly Road. Instead of doing that, we're lowering the elevation of the driveway through here and throughout the entire length. And we're able to match the grade on the uphill side, and we'll do a 2% cross pitch across. And then therefore we don't need any walls on the uphill. On the downhill side, we only have to do a section of 1-to-1 riprap grading, and we don't alter the wetland alteration area at all. So therefore we don't have to change the replication area or the replication plan. One thing we took careful care in the design was the stormwater. Back in 2002, when they filed the notice of intent, they also did a very detailed stormwater report with all the calculations. So we wanted to kind of maintain that same stormwater pattern so that the Schwartzes will not have to refile another stormwater water report. Is the intent. So therefore, we're not changing this drainage swale in any way. All the flow will still get to the drainage swale in the rear. For the driveway, we've added this infiltration trench down the entire length, so that will improve the stormwater system. There is an interceptor drain that goes across these backyards, and we're proposing to relocate that with in-kind the same length. And I've included the detail on sheet 2 from the subdivision plan when that was installed. It's a very simple trench. It's dig a trench, you lay a perforated pipe, and backfill it with stone. And then for the roof recharge, they had one system in the front yard. We're doing 2 systems. They're very, very similar. The only reason I'm doing 2 is that it'll be easier to connect the roof drains for the house if there's a system on either side. And then just a couple other things, reiterate or note. We're not increasing the limit of work. It's the same wetland impact area and replication area. And by moving the house forward and decreasing the amount of driveway, we're decreasing the amount of impervious surface by 457 square feet.
Pat and I went out to see this a while ago, so we're kind of familiar with the layout. And kind of walked it and kind of visually looked at where it was gonna go and how it was gonna impact or not impact the surrounding area. So, I think that, you know, at the time, I felt pretty good about what was gonna happen to the land and the way that they were, drawing it up. Is the house dimensions the same? I mean, it
No,
looks
it's
like the
different.
design is, so how much bigger is the house itself?
I don't believe I have that number with me. What I did calculate is the reduction in impervious area.
Yeah, right.
Just visually, it looks to be about the same size.
It looks wider.
This one looks narrower.
Oh.
This is the proposed amended plan.
Come on, Frank, get your ruler out.
No, well, I can do that.
No, don't worry about it.
Yeah. No, are these scales the same? They're close in size.
Yeah, they're both 20 scale.
I
they're
think
very
the
close.
only concern, I understand you don't wanna redo the stormwater, but where you've moved things and you don't wanna put the retaining walls in and so forth, somebody has to calculate to make sure it is going to do what it needs to do, no? I mean, I don't really know that much about stormwater. What,
There was not a stormwater back in
I understand.
2002, correct?
No, but they did prepare a full stormwater
No.
report with all the calculations, as detailed as we do now for the stormwater
Okay.
report.
Was
So-
it part of the subdivision review, is that?
No, it was an individual stormwater report for 14, yeah, that one. So we'll
Flip
try
through
to-
that real quick.
Yeah. No, I just wanna be sure that,
Right, and if you
everything
do,
goes in the right
Yeah.
direction, for sure.
Yeah, that's why we kept the rear yard going to the, what they call it a drainage swale, it's really a
Yeah.
depression.
Right.
And in the front, it was going.
Now
to
it pitches
River
off to
Road.
the
Yeah.
right as you're going down the
We've
driveway.
added this long infiltration trench, which will improve, it'll reduce the volumes and rates of runoff into the wetland, and it will also provide some treatment, which the treatment wasn't there before.
So where is in this plan, there was a receptor for the gutters, right? Isn't that what's in that front?
Yes. in
yeah,
the
here
front
it's
yard.
back here, Frank. Over here, they've got recharge for roof drains.
Okay,
I think they put 2 in now.
It was originally here,
yeah.
it's probably a little bit larger in size there, but here we have 2 systems, one in the front yard and one in the side to rear yard.
Okay. Anybody, Pat? Anybody else?
Well,
Yeah, when we walked it, we were, looking at mostly at the impacts to the wetlands, and, it can be kept outside the 50, but then that wouldn't allow any tree clearing or anything from 50 up until the wetland line, and it's right up against the side of the house, so you'd be kind of limited, and we wouldn't expect there to be any, you know, lawn established on that side or anything.
Right, and I noticed they have a split rail fence on the, I don't know if you saw that in the plan, on the 50-foot buffer.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would help.
Right,
yeah, with working right up to the 50-foot buffer, we thought that would look nice and it will also kind of.
right, and
define
at the
line.
closest point, the house is like 11 feet from that fence, so.
The other thing is, you know, we have the stormwater bylaw now in the town, and we're trying to limit the amount of tree clearing, and does the detention, or the drainage area, does that have to be that far out? Because it looks like everything has to be cleared, you know, the whole area would need to be cleared with trees and everything to get to that.
Yeah, there really isn't any reason to go that far back, other than it gives them a larger backyard. And as far as keeping this amendment simple, I didn't want to regrade that basin that was already approved.
Right. Yeah, I think based on what you were trying to do, we said it didn't need to be a new notice of intent. We could probably do it with an amendment, but, you know, with the stormwater and the tree clearing, the stormwater does change. You know, you're getting rid of some walls and getting rid of a few things, so I'd feel that somebody should look at it just to make sure that, you know, just to check on the calculations, to make sure it's similar. I mean, we have the Conoco report. It wouldn't need to be a new report. It would just be to see if your system, as you design it now, would work without any impacts. So it would need a drainage calcs.
But did you just tell us it did? Did you just say that the removal of those has no significance and the creation of the swale essentially does the same thing?
Yeah, that would, I mean, in my opinion, yes, that's how we designed it to keep the same system where we could, or improve it in other areas. So keeping the same system in the back, essentially using the same system for the roof recharge, same idea, and then adding the stone along the driveway.
And this is on a surge, right? This
It is, yes.
So as far as the backyard from the original plan to the present plan, how much is actually being cleared?
Exactly the same.
Yeah, that plan, you can see there's lawn up to the 50-foot buffer.
Mhm.
In the
And
backyard
now
is
there's gonna be
frontage
lawn
right
up to the 50-foot buffer with a split rail fence.
In the rear yard, this basin didn't change, so it's the same limit of clearing. I think we do have the tree line pulled in a little bit closer onto the property here, because we don't have to put a wall right along the property line,
Okay.
but it's minimal.
In the audience? Yes, sir.
My name is Frank Giannino. I live at 58 Kings Way. I'm a downhill abutter to the proposed changes. I know all you Conservation Commission members are new from when the original development went in under Walter Winchester, called Kimberly Estates. I was one of the people that sued at the time to try to prevent that and modify the conditions. I'd like to give you a little background so you can understand what the water issues are in my neighborhood on Kings Way. From my back stone wall, the highest point in the Kimberly Estates is 35 feet higher in vertical elevation. So the land slopes down on our side to Kings Way, and it swales a little bit, it has a little wales back, and kind of comes more to the corners than in the middle. When Mr. Winchester had his engineer here, after many hearings and a tremendous amount of work by the Conservation Commission, I remember distinctly his engineer standing up before the board, this room was full, and he said, "I'm an engineer. There's gonna be no water problems for you people." And now let me tell you what happened. After the development was approved with a restricted number of lots of houses, which was part of the development, the trees came down, the road went in, and the houses started to go up. The first thing I saw was that the groundwater started to go up. I got a flooded cellar, so I had to put a sump pump in. That was $500. The next thing that happened was the groundwater rose up to the level of the pipes in my leach field, backed into my tank. I couldn't flood, I couldn't pump. Even when I drained it, you could hear the water coming back in. So I had to put in an elevated septic system, $35,000. Then a few years after that, I had water on the other corner of my back cellar, so I had to put in a second sump pump. I'm not the only one that was affected. There's 8 houses on Kingwood Way Extension. They all had dry cellars. Now 6 out of the 8 have pumps in their cellars. If you look at the houses on the abutter side, we're uphill from the other side of Kingsway, and their houses are between our houses. So the water that runs down between the houses impacts them on the low side. That's how they got water. At this point, my situation is a disaster. I would not like to see any further modifications to the original orders, which were done by the Conservation Commission, because I don't want any more water coming my way. The hill is all clay. The trees and the brush help to retain the water and slow the rate down the hill. But still, there are a lot of effects. I would invite you to go to the end of Kings Way and look at the cul-de-sac circle. You'll see groundwater coming up through the tar. It's been patched many times by the town. The Department of Public Works knows about it. In the winter, it's so bad that in front of the Boris's house is all a sheet of ice. At one point, it got 4 inches deep, and the DPW came down with a backhoe, broke it up and put it in a truck and trucked it away. We just can't have any more water on our side. I mean, I understand the applicant's idea, and you know, I don't blame him for trying, but the risk is on us. He gets all the benefit. I'd ask you to think carefully about what you're gonna do.
But I just so you I mean, this project's already been conditioned. What they're asking for is not, it's already, they can build to that old plan right now. A plan that's before us. That was conditioned back in 2002. So what they're asking to do is to move the house to a different location. I mean, essentially, they're not looking to disturb any more land. They're keeping the same detention area. It looks like there's actually a substantial amount of effort to keep the water that's on the lot. What they're asking to do is to move the house forward some.
Are they gonna take down any trees, or clear any brush?
Nothing different than what was on the plan that was approved in 2002.
Was that part of the original Kimberly Estate Agreement?
I wasn't around back then, but I know that this house was permitted back, maybe 2009, there was a revision, or was that when it was permitted? I don't know. But this is already an approved buildable lot with the plan on it.
And he isn't clearing anymore.
No, they're
I mean,
not
I just-
changing
I-
grades or,
wait,
yeah.
I understand
Move
what,
the house forward, away from Kingsway.
The
We're not trying
clearing
to-
is
I
exactly.
hear what you're saying, and your concerns for this are very legitimate. But what we're here for tonight is a commission in 2002 okayed the construction, they conditioned this project back then. The applicant has renewed his permits or continued his permits. And the state of Massachusetts passed a law because of the slow economy that essentially all permits that were granted can be extended for a period of time. So they're within their right to build the house that's on the plan closest to Penny right now. What they're asking for is to build a slightly different house, different footprint, and basically disturb the same area, the same driveway, and they're keeping the same detention pond. It looks like they're trying to keep all the water, probably more so than some of the other houses that were built on Kimberly. I would say that this particular site has dealt with stormwater a lot more than probably the houses that were constructed back when Kimberly was first built. And does that seem pretty reasonable?
Well, just to address the concerns of the abutter, you're talking about, let's see, you'll be regrading the driveway, eliminating retaining walls and a culvert, and some of these changes, we're not sure, not being engineers, what that could do to this site. So, I mean, I have questions as to, I've worked with Morse Engineering with Jeff in the past, and, found them to be very good at this, but to have another set of eyes maybe to look at what these drainage changes could be on this lot.
Sure.
Just to feel comfortable that this new system will drain as well as what was approved in the past.
That's understandable, but I guess what I want everybody to understand is this is already an approved project. They're asking for a change in the project. We can
Yeah.
certainly have their calculations,
Right,
take a look
to
at
make sure
it.
they're the same or better, yeah.
But we're not, this is already a conditioned project. Is there anybody else in the audience that wants to speak to this?
I was just gonna say the same thing.
And
Lynn
you're-
Ferguson, 57 Kingsway.
Sure.
I'm one of the ones in between that had to put in some pumps and whatever, and so that's fine that that's approved. I would just respectfully request then that, like Mr. Murray said, that it's the same or better than what was approved. And maybe we consider, I mean, the cul-de-sac is still flooded right now because of all the storm runoff and stuff like that, so
Sure.
better would be better, obviously, for our whole street, so.
Well, unfortunately, for you, I mean, the town has enacted more stringent guidelines since the time that Kimberly was built. There's more review, there's more engineering, that goes into that, but, we'll certainly make sure that this one at least complies with what it's supposed to.
Frank, can I ask you a question? I understand the plan has been approved, and obviously, I guess the clearing has been approved previous to this. Usually when somebody builds in the 100-foot, which is our jurisdiction, they're actually gonna put the building, the majority of it, between the 50 and the 100. Can we ask for any mitigation for that? Or do we go back to the old plan that it was gonna be cleared anyways? A lot of times, when we have a new build, we will ask for some plantings being.
Right,
in
but of
that
course,
area.
if they build it like Frank said, exactly like it is,
I understand.
yeah.
I just, that's.
But to
something
Penny's point, there was no structure
in the
in the
100.
in the 50 to 100.
Right, but it's not a no-build zone either, it's jurisdictional.
Right, but if, in the old plan, that was just to be lawn.
Mhm.
In this plan, the home itself is in the 50 to 100, and oftentimes when people are in that area, there's some mitigation that goes along with that. Mitigation for something like this could be the addition of some native plantings or something like along those lines to enhance that area. I don't know what's in that, is that detention area like a standard?
The one in the back?
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't think they proposed any plantings for it. That might be something we can do, is improve that detention area by putting some native species in it.
That
native
might-
plants.
Or maybe some selective cutting too, where you leave more trees than you were going to possibly, or
That would be another alternative.
if there's some mature stuff you could leave and,
Yeah, I think we tried to do that anywhere we could, like where we pulled in the tree line a little bit on the westerly property line. We added what we talked about earlier, the post and rail fence. That's another area, maybe we rather than doing a fence the entire length, maybe we can put a couple shrubs in there. But we're open to any suggestions like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Soak up some of that. That's all, because they are getting closer
Sure.
with the actual building and.
Yeah. Okay. So you're gonna come back with that?
Yeah, why don't we request a continuance and you can have someone review the information that I submitted in
Yeah.
comparison to that drainage calculation submitted prior, talk about it next hearing.
So
Can we
how
get that
long
done,
do
do
we
you think?
want?
Yeah, we could get that done
Drainage
before the next meeting.
calculation.
Pardon me?
We could get that done before the next meeting.
So for May 7th?
June 7th. Oh, May 7th, you're right.
May
I'm sorry.
7th.
I'm jumping.
Don't
Sorry.
jump too far ahead.
No.
Okay, now I can't find the name. I make a motion to continue Schwartz, 14 Kimberly, to May 7th at 7:10.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Hoffman, Lot 2, 55 Colonel Mansfield, new build. This is a continuation? Hoffman, did we open that for us?
Jess? 55 Colonel Mansfield.
That should be good.
Yeah.
Right, that's down.
You and I went out there, but I just don't remember opening it, but we don't.
Please do that. shows some
New
planting.
water calculations and new plantings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't have a,
That buffer, along with the, yeah, I should say.
Paul, did we open this already?
Yeah.
Pardon? Did we open this one already?
No. Doing Colonel Mansfield?
No, no, we haven't.
Yeah, I think they'll talk to you guys informally about this, but I don't think we actually opened the hearing.
But this is a notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a notice.
And you,
and,
did you give him your, Oh, thanks.
Does it make more sense now?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I know the feeling, Pat.
Yeah,
It's-
What day is
The
it?
gal in our office is gonna be gone in another week for a week, and I'm already starting to get nervous.
You should just close.
We've gone vacation. On April 16, 7:10, the Town Hall Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Craig Hoffman to construct a new dwelling on Lot 2, 55 Colonel Mansfield Drive, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend.
Great. Jeff DeLisi from Ornberger Associates. I'm here with Craig Hoffman, our client, and Paul Marabito of Ross Engineering. As Paul said, no, this is-
Excuse me one second.
Shut the door.
Thank you.
As Paul
Sorry.
said, this is a notice of intent, and we're also on a stormwater permit petition as well. We have 5 total acres of property that the applicant's family owns out there at the dead end of Colonel Mansfield Drive. And essentially, what we're doing is, though we could probably get 3 or 4 lots under subdivision, we're coming in essentially to put a single-family dwelling on the lot, which would require us essentially to put a small cul-de-sac in to drive legal frontage. And Paul will go over the project in greater detail, but I would just preface it by saying that in comparison to some of the other more challenging projects that we've had here before the commission, this one is pretty straightforward. There's a very small portion of the proposed house is proposed to be about 90 feet away from the resource area, and then a very small amount of fairly minor grading work also is within that jurisdiction of this board. So I'll let Paul explain, and then we can take it from there.
Okay, thank you. This is the overall site that we started with. The property currently is owned by Richard Hoffman, the father, and the son is looking to construct a home in this area here. This parcel here is the 5.2 acres. It's at the very end of Colonel Mansfield Drive. The subdivision went up and stopped here. So what we're proposing to do is to create one additional house lot, which is in this area here. The existing house would stay here, and we're going to the planning board for one reason, to get the cul-de-sac laid out to provide legal frontage for the proposed house and also the existing dwelling as well. This is an amendment to the original Colonel Mansfield subdivision that was done back in the 1970s. The plan submitted with the notice of intent. Again, there were 2 applications. One was a notice of intent, one was a stormwater permit. This plan was submitted with a notice of intent. What it shows is the cul-de-sac in this area here. This is the lot line for this lot. The cul-de-sac's gonna have pervious pavement in it, shown in the gray area. The blue is the pervious pavement itself, and the rest of it will be, I'm sorry, this is all pervious pavement, but this is the under drain system for it that I'll go into in the stormwater permit. From the end of the hammerhead, there'll be a new driveway constructed, to be paved to the proposed dwelling in this location here. Brad Holmes flagged the wetland, and we showed a 50-foot buffer and a 100-foot buffer zone. The perk tests were done down the lower left-hand corner of the property. That's where we found the suitable soil. This is designed for 5 bedrooms. We
pick the house up so we can get a gravity system down to the aging area in this location here. There's a small amount of grading for the side slope just inside the 100-foot buffer zone. These blue areas you see represent subsurface drainage and treatment under the stormwater bylaw, both in the cul-de-sac. These are infiltrators for the roof runoff from the house, and this is a filter bed that would collect water coming from this direction here from the existing lot. And again, the purpose of the stormwater is to make sure that you don't have an increase in the volume of water running off the site. And that's why we have all these internal collection and absorption systems. There's some grading around the house. Again, the house is relatively flat, and we picked it up so we can put these units in gravel, so we can infiltrate it around, and we have the grading around it at 3 to 1. This is the silt sock that would be put in place prior to construction. This site, the rest of the site up in here would be made wooded as well. This is the stormwater plan, which is very similar to what we submitted with the site plan for the order conditions. The order calls for certain areas to be set aside to collect water during the construction phase. This area down in here is going to remain in its natural state. It's going to be a vital retention area, because the land is sloping in this direction, so any water coming in this direction here would simply go into the woods floor there. And this is the septic system for the recharge units for the roof. And there's a trench up in here with plantings and an infiltration trench as well. So, as Jeff mentioned, when we laid out the lots, and we showed this to the planning board, there's 5.2 acres, you need 40,000 square feet per lot. We laid out an additional, I think, 3 or 4 lots on this property coming off of the cul-de-sac, but they're only asking for the 1 lot here. And they've agreed not to, they've agreed to keep the cul-de-sac in private ownership in perpetuity, so it can never be further extended to the property here that would actually run out to Clifford. So with that, I'll end the presentation and answer any questions you may have.
Well, if everything goes well, we voted last night to buy the land behind us. So.
Yeah, it was a conservation. I guess I'm just a stickler. Is there a reason why, I know you're out of the 50, but why the house isn't a little bit more forward to get the corner of the garage out of that 100?
Well, the side yard setback here was 15 feet, but we also had the stormwater system in here. We also picked the system up so we could put these in fill and gravel. Could we orient this way that we're talking about, put something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Just,
we could probably do that, but we have to get all this, stormwater components work.
yeah,
We did think about that. I'm not saying it couldn't be done.
okay. It was just something to think about. It always makes life easier.
So this is all, right? And with the cul-de-sac and the house and the sewer system and drainage, et cetera, how many acres are we gonna end up clearing?
I haven't calculated that.
I know it's 5 in total, right? But how,
And this land is 2 acres right now, it's 2.13 acres.
So like,
I'm gonna take this
So like
and
half?
grading. No, it isn't half, it's probably maybe a third. Cause
oh,
this
this
is
will be
the
left
tree
down
line
there,
here, it's
okay.
gonna
Okay.
stay.
Yeah,
Again,
Yeah.
we're using some of this area for the treatment,
Mm.
stormwater bylaw.
Paul, you actually building, don't interrupt, but you're not building that cul-de-sac. That's just for frontage purposes. You're gonna do a hammerhead?
Yeah, there's a driveway coming in here now,
Yeah.
and the hammerhead's gonna be like this.
oh, I thought there was a
It's not actually gonna
No.
be a turnaround, he's just
Oh,
Yeah.
kind of.
The circle
out.
is drawn so that they can get frontage,
Frontage.
but the only thing that's gonna be disturbed is what they call a
Okay.
hammerhead.
This is the tree line here.
Yeah.
Normally, you would pave the entire circle and have sidewalks,
They're
but
not
we
gonna do
has
that.
to put the hammerhead. And the fire chief has agreed to that. We're also gonna put a new hydrant in here, so it's 500, it's less than 500 feet from this house. So, maybe a third, because everything in here is gonna stay the same. This area here is gonna stay the same, down in here. This tree line is in here. Which stays.
Yeah, it's probably a third.
Not looking to get
The,
anything out of the
zoning,
hundreds.
that's
That's
about
right.
80,
I asked him to move the whole lot.
Yeah.
about 88 or
I don't know.
90,000
He
square
said
feet.
they're thinking about it.
Yeah.
And we're probably gonna offer, 25 or 30,000 square feet.
Well, okay, I mean, I don't know if the orientation of the house is gonna change to reflect the 100, or we're gonna be looking for something on the other side of the equation to
Yeah.
get into the 100. I don't know which one is
Well,
which.
we're not gonna close tonight, we gotta do.
But again, the 100's not a no-build, it's just
Right,
jurisdiction.
yeah,
Like,
yep.
if- without
I'm
our
with you.
bylaws, they wouldn't even have to be here. It just
Yeah.
means they have to see us, because we could affect the wetlands.
But they did
all that.
also say they would consider.
Right,
moving,
right.
You know, which.
We will consider, we just have to,
Yeah,
let-
no,
yeah.
well, we're not gonna close tonight, it's something to be thought about and talked about at the next meeting.
Yeah. There's also a small amount of grading, I think, Paul, right? That's also within the jurisdiction as well, so we would still need it.
Yeah, over
Yeah.
by the
Yeah,
filtration system there, yeah.
Richard?
I'd love to see the house tilted or move forward a little out of the 50, or 100.
Out of the 100.
Out of the 100. What kind of a driveway is it gonna be?
Paved,
Does it have to be?
it's gonna be 10-foot paved driveway. You're better off paving it, because you can treat the water better. The water's gonna drain down into the filtration system under the blue area here. There's a, underneath this blue area, you have a fairly sophisticated, treatment system. What you start with is the previous pavement up here, and then you have a layer of crushed stone, and then you have some graded gravel in here, and then you have another layer of pea stone, and you have crushed stone with pipes, and then it leaches into the suitable soil below the ground in this area here. What this does is to take the water from the previous pavement, it treats it, but it'll let it disperse below ground, rather than just run off into the whole area, which would be a downhill slope.
So it runs down from pavement to impervious,
Everything-
impervious to pervious.
Everything's sloping in this way here,
Yeah.
so what's gonna happen is, you can see the grades, it's 125, it's 124, it's fairly flat, it's a flat slope. So the water comes down here, so the whole driveway will be in here, it'll be collected, and treated in here, as part of your stormwater system. And again, it's both to meet the requirements for treatment, but also to hold back the increase in volume. This is one feature. Then we have the bioretention area here, we're using the woods for that. There's a small weir here and proposed, fairly low stone wall. Then we have these infiltrators for the roof units, and we have this infiltration down the roof plants.
Thank you.
Paul?
No questions.
Lisa?
No questions.
Pat?
Well, because of the amount of clearing, this falls under the stormwater bylaw, and there was some discussion whether this would go to the planning board or would it come to us. So I think at this point, we'll be doing the stormwater review. It does go to the planning board for comments, and because it's in the Water Resource Protection District, it'll go to that group to look at it too. But under the bylaw, I mean, the goal is low-impact development, minimizing of the cutting of vegetation, and, you know, the tree line for this is, I mean, the wetlands are protected, it seems, but the whole, you know, the whole septic system is quite a bit of clearing a long way from the house, so the whole area from the septic to the house is being cleared. There's also an area being cleared for soil stockpiling and stuff like that. I mean, if there could be some effort to leave more vegetation in those areas.
It looks like they're gonna raise the whole grade though between the septic and the house.
We are.
Yeah, yeah.
We didn't see, you know, when you and I looked at
Right.
that, because they're trying to do a gravity
Just
Yeah.
the strip.
system, so
This
you
is trees.
can see that
This is
area is
trees.
filled.
So from here to here,
Um,
it's just,
But
it's
it
really
maybe
not that bad.
where the,
It's not as though they're clearing.
in the front yard, would there be a way to bring that in a little bit more, Paul? What's the chart?
Well, how wide is
Where it
that
says
swath?
existing tree line to be preserved,
This here,
Yes.
up in here,
maybe, I realize you gotta protect that sewer line, but if it would be possible to close in,
if we're gonna turn the house, we'll look to regrading too, and try to pull the tree line in if we can.
or anything you could do to reduce the cutting of trees, you know, if that could, maybe that then would allow the back to be pulled back and there wouldn't be quite as much cutting in that back, like where the contour 120 is. Go to the back. Yep, you're going the right way, the other way. Up, the back of the
There you
garage,
go,
right there.
Oh, right here,
You know, if that spun a little bit, maybe a little bit, could be,
yeah, I mean, if we turn the house, so there's,
just reduction a little bit in tree cutting if that were possible. But, is there anybody in the audience that wanted to, I realize we're not really facing that way. Is there anybody else here that wanted to? Can you, Paul, can you flip back to, that shows the whole property for a second?
this one, or the one?
Go back with the two lots. First one you showed. The first, with the house and stuff on it, go the other way.
With what, the new house on it?
Yeah, right,
Right, what about this one?
that's good.
Right there.
So I have a question. The town's gonna wind up acquiring all the land in back of you as part of the Damon parcel. Would you entertain some sort of path around the, maybe a far property line to allow people from, Colonel Mansfield and Sylvester Road to access that woods?
I'll have to talk to Richie about that, Craig's dad who owns
I mean, that's
the
huge
property.
mitigation. To me, that would be the whole piece, and I know that creates some privacy issue, but perhaps if it were like way on the far side or something like that.
We're not talking a multi-use trail, are we?
No, just,
No, just a
Four
path.
lanes.
Path.
A country
Monorail.
walkabout area.
I don't see this being like heavily used, but it would certainly afford access,
Which is what.
To that new land.
So we could talk, I'll talk to
That's
Richie about it. I don't know, Paul, isn't any engineering issues with that, but.
Well, you know, I was gonna mention, the next street over is Conservation Way. I
Yeah.
know there's a fairly large chunk of vacant land at the end of that. I don't know if that's part of the Damon.
if there was an easement, and instead of doing this, if you guys wanted to talk about clearing,
Yeah.
if you have another solution, that would,
Yeah, this is Conservation Way here.
right,
The only difference between this and Conservation Way is that the Conservation Way is all vacant land.
right.
I don't know what's in there, it seems it's woods and lot, it's been vacant for quite a while.
Well, there used to be a cart path that went
Yeah.
further
High
towards
path.
it's towards Conservation Way, and it came out on First Parish Road, and if it came to the end of there and that's something we could access, that would be good, especially if it hit that cart path. But there's also a old cart path that terminated where Craig's dad's house is, right in the back of that. So I realize it creates some sort of an issue, and so just a
Sure,
consideration.
no, I'll consider it, we'll talk to him. I'm just curious, does the town obviously has access to the parcel it purchased, right?
There's plenty of frontage
Yeah.
on Clap Road, so
On Clap
this
Road.
wouldn't be a parking area, or it wouldn't be a major thing, it would really just afford people in that neighborhood the opportunity to walk in without having to drive around and go in there, but it would be a no-brainer
Mhm.
mitigation on, at least from my standpoint.
Oh, I agree with you, because I was looking at that old
Are
map.
there any paths that currently exist?
Yes, there is.
Yeah, so,
There's plenty of paths back there.
The trails are all there, these are all
Yeah.
cart paths
No, I mean, that exists on the property, right?
On my father's property, no,
Yeah.
there's not,
No,
but you just go across to, over the other side of the stone wall, and yes, there's paths
Yeah,
everywhere.
that's
Yep, right over my dad's stone
what
wall.
we just.
That's
So I'm
the-
not
that's what you're
talking,
about
I'm not
connecting.
saying right through the middle of the yard or anything like that, but if it
No, no, right,
Where we're having
With the
a,
bathroom,
yeah, why not? Bathroom stop on the
but I mean,
way.
that
bar
was,
stop.
that's the reason why we wanna go for 2 lots, is because, you know, we wanna be somewhat quiet as a family.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why my father decided to break it up in 2 lots only, not to go for 3 or 4. I have a 4-month-old son and my wife, and we just, my father goes away in the winter, and he has his house there, and he just wants, he was nice enough and kind enough to, pass this land over to me, and
he just wants you to shovel the driveway.
exactly, watch out for the place, that's the main story, is he just wants, well, he's playing golf, he wants to make sure someone's watching his house, so.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. Paul, is still the plan for a walkout basement? No. So,
It was, yes.
so there'll be a reduction in fill because it's gonna be a walkout basement?
Well, if it's a walkout.
No, they're probably gonna need a little more.
Well, it won't be in the back, though.
Not in the back,
Right,
but
right,
Right, they're already elevating the house, so,
Right.
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 But they won't be filling the section that's
Right.
walkout and grading it.
And what about the chance that planning board might say no to the, getting rid of the cul-de-sac and putting in the hammerhead? Do you think they'd be okay with the
Well,
hammerhead?
we met with, yes, they're okay with it. We met with the planning board informally in December, and they all agreed that the hammer was okay. We also got review comments back from the fire chief. He's supporting the hammerhead, the addition of a hydrant at the end, at the beginning of the cul-de-sac, so we're all set with
That's
that.
good. That saves a lot of cutting.
What's that? Yes, Steve.
Yeah, Frank, if I could, I may be in the very near future working on another piece of land that's in this vicinity that actually has one of those trails on it. And this one here looks to me like if he's gonna give you a path around his house, it's gonna have to go through the wetlands. The other one that I may be working on has a path already on it. So if you can't get it here, if it doesn't make sense, if I put the other piece together, I would be willing to work with the commission on that. And that may actually provide some small parking area as well.
Okay. Well, I took Pat for a quick jaunt since we were so close, we just kept going. And I showed him the backside of Damon.
That's why you want to see your phone anymore.
He brought him back.
You didn't hear any banjos back there, did you?
The only moments of peace all week.
I showed him what a vernal pool looks like.
What we'd like to try and do, if possible, is obviously this hearing's gonna be continued. I don't know if you have any room on your agenda for May 7th, but we're meeting with the planning board on May 8th. And we'd like to be able to tell the planning board that we've met with you, that you've reviewed it, that the review is complete from both the stormwater and the notice of intent perspective.
See, it depends upon whether we can get somebody to look at it and
Yeah, I've talked to a couple of people, they're available to take on.
So we're gonna continue to the 7th.
Okay,
Yeah, we could get it, if we get an electronic plan, we could get it to them by Friday. And,
Who would that be?
okay.
we'll need to talk about, we have 2 engineers that are free that we've talked about at this point.
So I'll make a motion to continue until May 7th at
I have to see if one of
7:20.
them has got a conflict with another project.
All in favor?
Aye.
7:40, you said?
7:20.
7:20. Thank you very much.
That's not a 3-lot subdivision.
Yeah, I don't think this is a hard one to review.
No,
No.
it shouldn't be a difficult stormwater review. Yeah, just a big part of our bylaw is as much vegetation as we can keep in place, the better. So
Yeah.
sometimes people say, yeah, I can save this 20 by 20 section or something.
Yeah, we just want it done
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah,
Stormwater
that's a
plan,
great-
yeah.
We were in the driveway today, I couldn't believe it. They're in another state. Nice out there.
Yeah.
The neighbors are a little rough, but other than that.
Yeah,
Can't
exactly.
even see, yeah, can't even see anything.
Excellent, well, thank you.
The Inley School,
Let me just see.
do you have any more of those Things, or am I just gonna make them up?
Just ad lib, wing it.
Just make it up.
He's gonna give them to me one at a time.
We miss Carol. No, she doesn't.
He wants to be in control.
Well, that's a good thing.
I'm looking for all of this.
On April 16th at 7:20 PM, the Town Hall Situate Conservation Commission would hold a wetland hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of the Inley School to construct a nature trail and install native plantings at 136 Cornet Stetson Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Steve Ibis. I'm sorry, I don't believe anybody from the Inley School is here tonight because they have a function this evening there. Representing Inley School and Coyle and Caron, who did the landscape design. You may know this site. Do you know this site? Watch Hill Road is here. There is Watch Hill Road is right here. There's a driveway with two large bollards at the bottom of the road. This is the road going up the hill to the new acquisition by the school itself. There is a BVW.
Does anybody want to see, do you have any,
I'm very
want to see
sorry.
this? Okay. All right.
Okay.
Tiny.
There's a steep slope from the top of the hill down here. The toe of the slope is pretty much the BVW area. Yeah, there's another BVW on the other side. This is like a little valley, a little microcosm valley, and it's the headwaters of the meadow called Webster's Meadow, and it goes right down into Herring River. There is an intermittent stream that forms from a detention or infiltration basin up on Watch Hill. I think there's 8 or 10 catch basins that go into the basin, then groundwater and the basin itself discharges to the stream. Very, very intermittent. But there's an interesting BVW here because it's very species diverse. The project is to create a pathway, I believe it's 1,100 feet altogether. A portion of it from the driveway here all the way up to here is ADA accessible for wheelchairs, number one. It would be crushed stone, bordered by aluminum edging with some local boulders and cobbles on the downside, 2% grade, 4 feet wide. Taking advantage of the straight elevations here, and then you go up the slope to a stairs, landing, stairs, and then a landing and bench with some seating up there. There are 2 small bridges over the intermittent stream. This one is 22 feet wide, this one is 10, and then there's a small boardwalk. And the 430 square feet divided by 4 is about 107.5 feet long. There would be some grading, some cutting of invasives in this area to just form a 4-foot wide pathway in the BVW and then outside the BVW and then coming back. Let's see. There's also a whole bunch of plantings, and I won't go into them all, but there's 770 plantings altogether. 441 of them are smaller plants, the rest are larger plants and trees and shrubs.
How many plants, Steve?
I believe it's 770. I have a list for you if you'd like to see it.
It's okay.
Okay.
Serious
All
reading.
natives.
Maybe this weekend you can take a look at it, and go
Right,
through
all
it.
natives. As you know, there's a lot of invasives in here as well. So they hope to take out the invasives and put back plants to help stabilize the slope. There's also some conservation wildlife mix in this little area here where there are some invasives they would like to take out. Is there anything else I should tell you about? Yeah, the trail connects these 2 locations. Oh, and this location, there's an outdoor classroom evidently right up here that it connects to. There's a science teacher there at the school that's very excited about doing projects And if you'd like to talk with him at some point, he's welcome. He would be happy to come in. I think that's it in a general sense. Do you have any questions? Penny?
This is very interesting. First time we've had one of these.
It's a great opportunity to get young children, these are pre-K to eighth grade children at the school, to get them out into the wetlands to understand what a wetland is, so that, 50 years down the line, they'll remember things. That's what I'm hoping. It's called an indirect impact.
Yeah.
Getting people out in and teaching them about the wetlands. It's also a very interesting little microcosm, as I said, because it's very species diverse, and so there's some interesting species there that you won't get a chance to see unless you actually get into the wetland itself. I know you haven't had a chance to get out there. So
How do you know that?
I mentioned it. Somebody has seen it, but not everybody.
Okay. Somebody told me.
Yeah.
Somebody told me. Maybe some people have been out there. You can see the entire valley right now with leaf off, right from the top of the hill. It's very easy to view the location.
There may even be a woodchuck living there.
Possible.
Yeah.
Actually, more like a fox.
You think that is, that den?
Yes.
Wow.
Very good. Yeah. And it was active a couple of years ago when I was first out there.
Well, there's a new one.
Oh, really?
Mm.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, that's great. So that's another opportunity to see some wildlife.
The path's going right over, it's dead, but
They'll move around. They'll move around. Yeah, they're pretty flexible. Again, this is it's a small little valley. It's like a little, it's a miniature watershed right there.
I think this is great.
What did you say this path will be?
4 feet wide.
Just 4 feet in just dirt?
Yes,
What's there?
nothing, no changes to the grade, no changes at all. 4 feet wide, and we will locate the path in between trees and shrubs, so we don't have to cut it.
Yeah.
Except invasive.
Exactly, except invasive.
Well, we just don't want the big stuff.
Exactly.
Steve, is that section gonna be left just a natural soil, or is that gonna get the gravel and the?
No, that's gonna be
Okay.
left just natural,
That's
natural
we,
substrate.
yeah, we were out there today and it looked like there were a lot of areas you could just leave naturally, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would agree entirely.
And the bridging over the stream, was that was done by Morse Engineering?
No, there are a couple of details on the plan here, in terms of the bridge. And then there are some guidelines from another conservation commission.
They've changed the guidelines on bridges, right? Lisa, remember they were changing the guidelines on
crossing
stream
standards,
crossings?
Oh,
Right,
stream, yeah,
yeah.
this is not like the stream
Oh,
crossings.
no.
This is not a permanent stream or
Okay.
anything. There are some boardwalk construction guidelines that we found online from Acton that were just revised as of December of 2013, that seemed very good. So we would work with the Conservation Commission agent, if you'd like, to make sure that we minimized our impact with regard to how the stream crossings get done.
Couple of things, Pat and I did have a chance to walk this afternoon, and just a little bit of concern about how close the walkway is to that intermittent brook, Steve. Do you think there's
Yes.
any potential that could be just a little bit further away? Or do you, I mean, it seems like you're trying to hold that contour, and there's already sort of a naturally occurring
There's a
spot.
naturally occurring, almost like a little
flat area.
right there, and that's
Yeah.
probably the best place to put it, really,
Yeah.
rather than try to go up the slope and then cut into the slope even more. Because the less you cut into the slope, the less erosion problems you'll have on the long-term side of things.
The other thing, that upstream crossing,
Here,
there's like one defined stream, but actually today what was strange is it almost seemed like there was more water moving below that a little, maybe more out
a
further.
little further.
Yeah, go,
Yeah, the stream, it's an interesting stream because it's got a.
sort of splits by that wall, and
That's exactly right. It's called a Rosgan D1 or D3 classification where it's a braided stream.
I knew
I always am afraid I'm gonna pronounce that wrong, so I didn't bring that up.
Yeah.
I knew that.
Right, but.
Lisa had that right on the tip of her tongue.
I just, but I, out of
Right,
respect.
exactly.
Yeah.
But the stream, yeah, you're actually correct, yes, of course, the stream does become braided.
Right.
And that's because of the elevations there.
Right.
Topography allows the stream to go, it's very flat in that area. And
So do you,
it's-
I guess my question is, do you think that that boardwalk is sufficient at that size, or do you think it needs to be longer, or?
I think it probably is. I think the stream would come under the boardwalk, but we can certainly make another.
My feeling is that you may find that in order to not be mucking through the
Right,
skunk cabbage and whatnot, that might need,
need a little bit extra,
yeah.
sure, okay. I can believe it, it's quite possible.
I think that would be something that would wanna be sure that
Sure.
you're sort of beyond the real wet area.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it was looked at by the landscape architect in the middle of winter, and I don't think they saw it under these
I think it
conditions.
wouldn't be bad for you or for them to take a look and see where that actually is. It's pretty broad, that area, and especially today, because we just had all the rain yesterday.
Yeah. Right now, that stream crossing is 22 feet long.
You take a look, if you can get out there
I'll be happy to.
while that water's moving,
Sure.
you'll be thinking that they're gonna need a,
Bigger boat.
We're gonna need a bigger boat.
That's fine, we can certainly look at that.
and then, just, I'm not a landscape architect or anything like that, but would there be, you mentioned that there'd be like aluminum edging.
Yes, along the down gradient side of the pathway. That's
Keep the gravel in.
Exactly,
Yeah.
keep the stone dust in, or gravel, right?
So there's one section that's ADA accessible, it's not that loop.
That's
It's-
correct, it's one
okay.
section, and it's this section from the driveway all the way to the upper, or this stream crossing here. And there's a little platform right there for viewing as well. It's a really nice spot because you can be down there and see over the entire
Right.
wetland area. It's really a great opportunity. Rather than building a boardwalk out into the wetland and all the way along, use the hillside and that little ledge or
Sure.
terrace that's right down there.
Well, you were spot on. I said it was a woodchuck, and you said, man, it's too big.
Too big. It's a bear or something. Where the pile of dirt from it was.
Yeah, we're just rookies, I guess.
Yeah.
Was the pile that big?
Yeah,
Oh,
it
okay,
was.
so it's newly.
It's
newly
fresh.
dug.
Yeah.
There's an older one,
Yes,
but then there's a brand new one.
okay,
We ran out of the woods. We didn't know what it was.
Well, you weren't sticking your hand in.
right. I always
Like
bring my
Mom and
stick.
Dave.
Private? So is this private?
It belongs to the school, yes, it's
Yeah.
private. Yes, the school is a private school.
Is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak to this?
So one other thing we'd have to do is check on, trail standards under DEP guidelines for wetlands, and I'm sure this would fit, but we'll just make sure that we've covered it.
Sure.
And I can do that before we meet again. You guys wanna set up a time to walk it, and we can,
You want this?
have to do it probably after 4. They're in school, and then the road is
Do this.
private till 4.
What's that?
We can do this tonight, can't we?
Can we close?
Yeah.
I think let Pat take a look at
But
those
you may,
standards.
yeah, you may wanna take a walk.
I'd love to,
Yeah,
I'm
take a
trying
walk, and
to
if you think of
orientate
anything
myself
else-
to where it is, so yeah, if you
But
could
it's,
just,
it worked out well.
yeah, I know, but I can't figure
The
out
road
where.
that goes up to where this,
Yeah, there's one road that goes by the school,
Yeah.
Right.
Watch Hill Road, it goes up
Yeah,
to the subdivision up there.
yeah.
And then there's another driveway, again, look for the large bollards there.
Yeah, It's,
and there's actually a
old
sign,
house.
there's a sign there that it's sunflower field or
Yes.
sunflower farm or something.
Yes, goes up go up that driveway, you can park up there,
But
and then you come out and look.
You go past the school.
you go past the
just
school,
past
and
the
then-
school, it's on
okay.
the left-hand side.
That's
Okay.
as you're
right.
going up Walnut,
Watch out.
Watch Hill.
Alternatively, you can park in the school parking lot, and there's a small pathway up the hill
Right.
that you
But-
can walk.
What they do have is a sign up that because it's a play area for kids, you're not supposed to drive up that driveway until after 4 PM.
That's correct.
So you'd have to go before 8 or after.
Right, I just park down and just walk up.
Okay.
Do you have the green cards in your folder?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, thank you for reminding me.
How was supposed to do
We're
that?
lost without Carol.
You got
Thanks, Steve.
All of us.
You got the
Lost.
Fox, I got the green cards.
That's it, yeah, right.
We're all lost without Carol.
Okay, so continue it for, just a,
Seventh, yeah.
all right?
7th,
Yeah.
okay. I make a motion to continue Indy School, oh, you got a lot, May 7th at 7:30.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, Pat, if you're going out there, let me know.
You could have some
Yeah.
future conservationists from the Inley School would be,
One can only hope.
Right.
sure.
Right.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Is it Grassy?
Gracie,
Gracie,
Penny.
sorry.
Penny,
Chris Pratt.
Yes.
from the
are we
general
getting really
contractor
full on
handbook.
the 7th?
Yeah.
We had some other
1,
ones?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we have 7 right now.
Do you have one more, a thing to read tonight for,
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Pat, you just need to be one at a time. I'm not gonna lose it, Glenn.
know she gave me
He hasn't caught on yet after 3 trips up.
Half a dozen more times, he'll get it.
Yeah.
On April,
I'm gonna call her up, tell her to come in.
on April 16th, 2014, at 7:30 PM, the Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Aaron Pratt to install wood piles for an existing deck at 180 Central Ave, Humrock. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. You wanna come up?
Sure.
No, I didn't get that.
Compared to the stuff we just heard, it's pretty cut and dry.
Sure.
We've got a house on 180 Central Ave. When the house was built, it was under-engineered. The house is sitting on piles, the deck's cantilever on doubled 6x12 beams. The cantilever with small braces coming up to hold them. Under-engineered, they're sagging, they're not really safe anymore. All we're proposing to do is a foot inside of those beams, drive four piles on each side of the house to pick up each deck. The decks are existing. All we wanna do is make sure the house maintains its integrity. 8 12x12 round wood piles will be driven next to each set of beams on the street side and the ocean side. And that's pretty much it.
I didn't get down there, is there a reason that they can't cantilever to begin with?
They're already cantilevered.
I'm saying, was there a specific reason that they did
No,
that?
the house was built 50 years ago and just was under-engineered. Somebody thought they could get away with it.
Well, sometimes you have to cantilever because
Yeah, no,
you're
I
in a
don't.
resource area.
Yeah, no, they wouldn't have had to out
Yeah,
there. They
well,
just,
that's what I'm-
somebody didn't,
'cause I
either
didn't
they
get
added
out
a
there.
deck later or they cheaped out on the pilings, yeah.
Okay.
Will they be able to access these all right, Aaron, without disturbing a lot of, surroundings?
Yeah, there's a right of way next to 178 to get in onto the beach side.
Mhm.
He's already got certificates from both neighbors saying it's fine by them. The street side, we walk right in from the street and attack those from his own property.
So you're not having to disturb much?
No, I don't have to move anything, all I have to do is bring the pile driver in, plop it right in front of that deck, and drive the floor on that side.
There's nothing to disturb there.
No, there's not.
It's a visa, right? So it's open underneath?
We're both
Yeah.
on Central Avenue.
It's open underneath, right?
Anything you disturb will be fixed after the next high tide.
They'll just end up in the street.
It was fixed after the last storm.
That's encouraging. Pat?
No, pretty straightforward.
Okay.
I don't have any questions, you want me to close?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I make a motion to close.
Wait a minute, anybody in the audience?
Yeah, anybody in the audience for this one? You opposed it?
Let them do it, please.
Just checking.
I paid her.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for
Good luck.
coming in.
Thank you very much.
So we
Thank
closed
you.
one.
Who are these?
those,
Just go in
yeah.
our folder.
Sometimes.
It seems like we're just pushing it along.
Right, yeah, look at, that's the first thing we closed.
Yeah,
I know,
So-
tonight,
Recycling.
yeah.
just push it.
For an informal, well, actually, you guys are here, so come on down. Do we have this on the agenda?
It's like deja vu.
Well, it's on the agenda for informal. We just got, I think, the notice of intent,
Okay.
so it isn't actually a hearing here.
So which one's this? 7 Irving?
Yeah, it's
No.
right on the corner.
We're Parker.
Oh, this is
Oh,
23
all right,
Parker.
well, wait a minute.
Oh, so
Wait a
we're,
We
minute.
have to go back.
No, wait, there's nobody here for the
I
other
don't
one.
Nobody's
think
here.
there's anyone here.
I just didn't see it.
Sharon,
Is this one of the ones that you added to the agenda?
No.
No, it's right
No,
there.
that's these.
It's right on the bottom of your
Yeah.
agenda.
Mirabito.
Who the heck let Pat run the office? Why weren't you going in and filling in for Carol?
No, I just went in and talked.
All right, so these people are a no-show.
Typewriter, so I just typed it in. It was in the
I believe that. If you had access to the computer, Paul, I'm afraid of what would show up there.
The door was open, so.
Why not?
All right.
All right.
So just briefly, we were in here, we obtained an order of conditions, I don't know, I'd probably wanna say about 6 months ago or so. We're proposing, to basically cut back fairly significantly on some of the work that we were doing out on this property. And Paul will cue you in as to what that is. All of the work that, we're proposing to do and the work we're cutting back, is within the scope of your original order. We think that it's fairly insignificant in the grand scheme of what was permitted. And we'd hope that the commission decides it's not necessary to actually amend the order of conditions. But of course, that's up to the commission. So Paul, just explain what's happening here.
Anybody here remember this on Parker? There was a very large retaining wall by the maintenance building for the Scituate.
I remember.
I'm gonna refer to this in a few minutes.
Maintenance building, what?
It's the little maintenance building, there's a back access road to. And there was a maintenance building.
It's down over here.
We all walked through
They
it
knocked the house down, built a big house. They were gonna fill this all in
Right.
and have this huge retaining wall, like 9 feet tall or something. But now they're not doing it. Paul's gonna tell us what they're gonna do.
Okay.
This plan is actually an overlay of what's proposed on top of what was approved, but this yellow line represents a poured concrete retaining wall that was approved. There's no retaining wall all the way around here. At this corner here, the wall was 12 or 14 feet high. Well, we cut that in half. Not only that, but instead of putting the wall along this entire yellow area, the wall will be right along this purple line, and here the wall is flush with the ground, here it's flush with the ground, at this corner it'd be 6 feet high, this high out of the ground. So from here it's gonna flare back into the slope, and here it does the same thing. We're proposing to put boulders along here, and put them on a slight slope, and then in back of that, it's gonna be plantings, and we're gonna come up with a 3-to-1 slope to elevation 117. I'm gonna go to that plan in a few minutes, but this is the wetland, this is a 50-foot and 100-foot buffer zone. This is the stormwater system we had proposed for the entire property. What we're looking to do is, when they dug, we never did test pits in this area here, but this is a big hill of gravel. And when they dug the foundation, we were up there, we observed it. What our proposal to do is to put some dry wells in here, leaching pits to get the roof run up in this area here. The landscape architect has got pervious surface underneath this patio here. So the water's gonna be collected here where, in the previous condition, everything from here was all running down into this system here. This system doesn't need to spin. So we believe we could reduce that. What I've done for the informal is just to run through the areas based upon what the landscape architect is doing. The actual house, there's a paved driveway here. I can tell you that, the patio area has been reduced by 55%. The patio, there's gonna be patios down in here as well. Also, the fill in the buffer zone has been reduced by 78%. And that's when we had the fill for, this is a 100-foot buffer. When we had that big tall wall in here, we had a substantial amount of fill. That's been cut by 78%. Also, the volume of fill has been reduced by 75% overall. That's from this area down to the wall. Lastly, the lawn area, that's in the 50-foot buffer zone. This was all going to be lawn originally. That's been reduced by 85%. In place of the lawn, the lawn is, again, this is the 50-foot buffer zone.
Yeah.
This was all going to be lawn. But what we have here is we've actually pulled the wall back from the lawn line, we pulled the wall back. This is all plantings in here. It's a 3-to-1 slope. And then this is the edge of the lawn here. And from here, it's gonna slope up about 2% to this area here. And then you're gonna walk up a set of stairs to the upper patio. And you're gonna walk up another set of stairs to the deck on the first floor of the house. Now, the first floor of the house, the first floor of the house is elevation 136. What the architect did was put a set of stairs in here, and he lowered the terrace by 10 feet. So this terrace is 10 feet lower than the first floor of the house. So what he's done is just step everything down the hill. There's another set of stairs that goes from 126 down to 119, and this is 117 in here, so this is fairly flat here. And this will be the yard area in here between 50 and 100, and this area here. This is a wall here that's gonna hold the terrace up. This is all pervious pavement below it, the pavers. And he has more plans along the side here to provide a buffer between here and the golf course. So, all in all, this is quite as, we feel relatively ordered conditions, that the work in this area is clearly within the original order. It's a substantial reduction in the work. I think it's much better because we've done some lower than several feet.
This one we drove by.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
right, okay.
So the purpose was to show you this formally and ask if they would like to start the work. This is a 100-foot buffer zone. We did the areas to show that we're reducing quite a bit of the areas that we're contributing to the runoff out of this area here. But what we would propose to do is to, under the stormwater, is to give you, provide calculations to show that we can take care of most of the requirements for reducing the volume of this area here. Some of this may still be in place, but we don't see the whole thing having to be built. Again, we can provide calculations for that. What they would like to do is to start the yard work here, so they can have some kind of a buffer here to protect the wetland and then start working up the hill. This is gonna take some time to do this, and they'd like to get that done sooner than later. What they do is to start with a wall. This is all clear. What they like to do is to get the boulders in place, and then slope it up, get the plans in there, and then keep working on it all from there. Right now, this has all been cleared, but there's nothing down in here yet on the silt side.
The house is built, this is the,
But
yeah,
what
but
happened when this was done, if I remember right, is we conditioned the retaining wall first,
yes, they were gonna do that first.
right?
They didn't.
Was it, we didn't condition the whole project once, because the house was outside the buffer zone. So what we conditioned was that retaining wall.
In the stormwater,
Well, yeah, the
because it was
stormwater-
in that retaining wall. It was,
Right.
you know, we had to move it back and this and that. My problem is that, to my recollection of this whole thing, it's a very steep drop off. And I think before I can make any judgment, I have to go out there and see on the ground what you're doing differently. Because, I'm very confused right now.
I appreciate all the calculations, it's so much reduction and all, but I have to
Yeah.
agree with Penny. It's totally different. I mean, it's just totally different
I have to go out
from
and
what
see
it was gonna be.
from the ground, have somebody tell
Remember,
me.
we had to climb through all the
Yeah,
vegetation.
exactly.
But I think what, I mean, I
And it was
guess
a
maybe being
big
more
drop.
familiar with it, what essentially they're doing is they're starting the stepping down at the house. Before, what they tried to do was have everything come level off the house. If I'm, understand what Paul said, that terrace, that patio is now gonna be 10 feet down from the, what's the elevation of the patio, Paul?
This patio is 126.
And what's the elevation of the first floor of the house?
136.
10.
So,
And what happened before?
There's another
this,
terrace
up
in between.
Starting
Yeah.
in here,
right,
we have 2% slope from here going straight out.
yeah.
So this wall was way up in the air.
Yeah.
This is
Right.
a big massive fill area.
Right.
All we've done is to take, this purple as a wall, it's gonna hold this patio in place, which is 10 feet lower than the house area. And then there's a set of stairs going down to a lower elevation. which
Another
is,
7 feet down.
This is 7 feet lower. And then this is a flat slope. It goes from 119 to 117 along that green line.
Naturally.
So if you can imagine, instead of, no, it's not gonna be natural, because there's still a 6-foot retaining wall.
Well, that's why I wanna
Here.
see it on
But
the
instead of a
plan.
12-foot one,
It's gonna be less work and less fill in the 50-foot
I
buffer.
understand
At
that.
this
The,
point
the
right here, the
big
wall's
thing
6
is you
feet
probably
wide.
want a stormwater review to see, because you're changing the
Yeah.
whole grading plan.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
that's what I'm
But
getting
we
at.
never,
Right, but I can't look and do like you were saying, we need a
No.
stormwater review versus,
Well, we do, but also I would like to see it visually, because I
yeah.
have another vision in my head.
but it's,
and-
it's really less fill and less
Yeah,
disruptive.
no, definitely, but they're still filling.
Oh, yeah, but they're already approved to put a lot more
No,
than they're,
no, I
yeah,
understand that.
yeah.
But the stormwater management, a lot of that stuff is here, and it's not there anymore.
Right, that's what I was saying, we need
Yeah.
a stormwater review,
Yeah,
which will be calculations and looking at the runoff and how this affects it.
I think, Pat wants to
Well,
say
well, I was just gonna say, I mean, we have an order of conditions in place, and this is quite a change from the original order. It's not a revised plan, this is actually an amendment. This, under the state law, it requires an amendment for this, which can be done quickly. We could get an amended, notice out there within a week, and have the stormwater review if you feel that, it's needed. I would think that getting rid of the infiltration, changing the whole grades, putting in roof drainage, I mean, we don't know if it's gonna work. This is quite a slope out there, so I mean, I would recommend stormwater review, an amended order of conditions, and it's gonna be a better project in the end,
Yeah.
but I think we have to look at the calculations and be sure. You know, we have down slope abutters, and we have people all over town that are, you know.
Yeah, but that's, isn't that, I mean, well, and, is that a stormwater issue or a notice of intent issue? And
Well,
that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, if it's in the jurisdiction for the notice of intent, we have an order of conditions that includes all the stormwater calculations in there. So, I mean, it is a gray area. We could kick it back to the planning board and see what they want to do, or we could, you know, try to have an engineer take a look at it and amend it. Because you have to amend it anyway, because it's a change within our jurisdiction, that whole, you know, you know, there's no way you can do a revised plan for something like this.
but on, conversely, it doesn't seem, to me, if, as long as the calculations show that this is correct, and it's gonna work, which I can't believe it's not a much better approach, that we're not gonna go along with this, but I think Pat's point is, I mean, essentially right now, you have a permit to dig and start to build a wall, or do you build a thing 12-foot high? I mean, I realize you're gonna go from a poured concrete wall to a stone wall, so you're a little bit at your own risk how you start to put this together. But you've got siltation there, you've got a permission to work there.
One of the main things too is the abutters have a right to see what changes have taken place within the jurisdiction that we have approved.
Right.
And one other little thing is the work has started this project without a pre-construction meeting. We got out there and it was torn up and there was erosion controls weren't working. We're supposed to have pre-construction, and that's, you know, that has to be told by the developer and the engineers to the contractors. You know, we found all sorts of stuff out there, and, you know, that isn't getting off to a great start. You know, we really want to.
Did they tighten that up?
Yeah, there were, erosion controls were added, and, but again, the contractors don't sit through all the meetings, so we like to sit down with them with the plan and say, this is what this means, and those erosion controls certainly aren't gonna work, you're gonna need, full silt sock,
Right.
so.
And this has been going on all winter.
Yeah, most of the time, the property was under the cover of snow, with, the erosion control.
But when they started that construction, really the contractor should have had a pre-construction with Pat to make sure that those things were in place. I wasn't.
They hadn't seen the orders of conditions. I was out there, where are the orders of conditions? They went, well, we're digging holes, we're building walls, and, that's responsibility of the developers to,
Well, the owner, in this
Yeah.
case, the owner, and
So, how far out to continue this?
well, if they're gonna have to, if Pat is saying that they need to amend the order, so that's a filing.
Yeah, they gotta file.
So they-
This isn't even a hearing, this
Yeah.
is just
Yeah,
I
okay,
guess,
you're right.
I guess
I'm
one of
getting
the
confused.
thoughts that, talking to Mike before the hearing, one of the things that they'd like to do, is at least start some work, because they have guys out there now, and I don't know what the feeling of the commission is on this, but at least start some work, on the property that is outside of the 100-foot jurisdiction. And I'm wondering what the commission's thought is on that.
Yeah, Jim Boynton pointed out what he wanted to do, what he thought could be done, and it didn't seem like it would cause any impact to the
Right.
association. It sounded reasonable.
Well,
We
I
don't
guess
wanna
that's
slow
what-
the project
I
down.
just
But, I
don't
mean,
want-
that's what I was saying
Right.
to you, is that you have permission to disturb all that area. If you, at some point, you're gonna be coming back to us, if you were going outside of the area that's already been approved, or making it more excessive, certainly would be saying to you, don't be even thinking about it until you're approved. If you're lessening the project, you're changing it, we still need that information. The abutters have the right to know that, and then we need to know that it's gonna work with the stormwater. It seems to make sense to me, it decreases the work all the way around, and the impact, which all makes sense. You might say, well, in that case, why do we have to do that? But you appreciate the piece that it is a major change, and you have an order of conditions, and that requires an amendment.
I mean, I disagree. I think it's within the scope of the original order, because you're doing the same things, you're just lessening the amount of what you're doing.
Well,
But, I respectfully disagree with that, so,
That's
but
nice,
but
sir.
what we're trying to do, though, is we don't wanna, we obviously got off to, we didn't have the pre-construction meeting. What we don't wanna do is be in a situation where we do some work out there that's outside of the jurisdiction of the commission, and then get called in on that under some other pretense. And so, we'd like to do is just be, open disclosure with the commission, if that we'd like to actually do that, do the work that's outside of the jurisdiction of the.
Well, I would say, certainly the patio adjacent to the house and the walls for there, when you get down to the far side and you're talking about changing from a poured concrete wall to a stone wall, I think that's certainly better environmentally, but that's a fairly different change, and that's one you probably need to get resolved. That, even an engineer or somebody's gonna have to say, yeah, that stone wall's gonna stand up the way the poured concrete. In fairness, I recall having a hearing and how it absolutely had to have this big wall in order to make things flat, because otherwise the project wouldn't work, and the level area, reduced any chance that water was gonna flow onto the neighbors. So now we're coming around and saying, well, we don't. You're still keeping it flat, you're bringing it down, you're doing the stepping in other places. I understand it, but I do think there's some process that needs to be followed.
The other thing is the timing is to your advantage, because usually we meet every 2 weeks and you would have had a file by today, but you have a week to get in paperwork for an amendment, and then you could be on our next hearing, which would be the 7th. So, I would think an engineer and the amendment paperwork could get wrapped up by then. Then, as long as there are no surprises, that it would get closed that night. We could even look at, having conditions ready that night.
You're talking about the amendment for the order of conditions.
Yeah. But the stormwater review could be done by then, before then.
don't know if you could get that done in a week, the stormwater calcs?
Or we could get it
Got
to
two.
somebody. You mean
Got
to
2
get the,
weeks.
it would be 3 weeks from now, the hearing, but would you need, you need it before, a week before that? To have the review back to you, conversations with whoever does it?
Well, you know, the original review was done by the engineering department, are they gonna be doing?
I
that as
asked
well?
them and they are not able to.
They-
I did check. So you did save money the first time around on that, but, they're doing the street water lines right now, they can't do anything, but we could have it to somebody by Friday, get a bid back and have it be definitely completed before the next hearing. And we'll ask them if they think they need to be there to explain it, or whether they're good with it and you're all set to go.
Yeah, you know, the problem with the stormwater, if someone else reviews it, they're gonna start from scratch. Whereas if the engineering department did it, they have the previous information, they just.
Well, we don't control that.
I know.
I mean, it looks to me like you've got it pretty well worked out, so I think,
Oh, we haven't run the numbers, we just did the areas thing.
okay, so
Well, let me see
probably
what-
good reason.
Let me see what we can do. We'll try to get it as soon as we can. It just takes time to do those numbers.
Oh, you're gonna file. They have to file. I'm here trying.
It's only 9 o'clock, Paul.
I'll also get it done by 8 o'clock.
All right.
We're not done, we still have a lot to do.
Great. Well, I think it's a better solution.
Oh, I agree. It's a lot less work. Frank, can I ask you a question? Is there any reason why that lower wall in the corner at 6 feet high and from there it tapers down to 0 at each end? My thought was if he could bring in the stones now and put them in there, then we could put some cloth up against that and just stabilize that area. That can act as like a small ponding area to the extent you may or may not need it during construction.
I mean, like I say, you have permission to excavate that and do methods in there. What you have approved is that larger wall. So as long as you're coming back with it, and they prove out, I mean, just be sure that whatever you build
It proves out.
is gonna prove out.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good, thank you.
You want these back? Yeah.
Keep going.
This is.
What else do we have added to our agenda this evening?
Oh, we got a list.
308 Central, 214 Central, 159 Pollitt.
We can table mine.
It's gonna turn into the town meeting.
It's not gonna, because
No, I'm still,
bio break, the fellows bio breaks.
okay.
Thank you.
Didn't we have fun Monday?
Yeah, yeah.
I'll know by tomorrow, and I'll let you guys know Friday. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, the whole revised plan amendment thing,
Yeah,
it's pretty clear in DEP when, if your house is gonna have an extra step or your deck is gonna have an extra footing, then you can do a revised.
I guess my point is that they need to revise it.
Yeah.
If they came in here tonight and said, we wanna clear an extra 20 feet,
Yeah,
I'd say, don't clear that 20 feet until you have the hearing.
yeah,
In this case, they're looking to reduce the impact.
I know.
If they wanna start to proceed with that,
Just being pushed.
they still gotta show that it meets all the stormwater.
right,
But
right.
they already have permission to
Right, the
disturb
work,
and build.
you're right, the stuff they were just talking about with the silt and the, yeah.
Right, if they wanna
Cloth,
go ahead and get to
Right,
work,
right.
as long as, in the end,
It
if they put that all together, but they can't get an engineer to sign off on it,
Right.
then they're at their peril.
Right, exactly.
That amount of impervious surface is staggering.
Oh.
When you look at the plans, I mean, it's just a lot
Yeah.
It
going
was
on there.
Now,
even more.
the patio's gonna be pervious, right?
Right.
Dave's Pervious.
That's
pa-
pervious.
And
Yeah,
the driveway and the guest driveway and the,
yeah.
Well, we can just, some of that we did, but also realize that a lot of that, they were pretty careful how they did that. What they conditioned
Yeah.
was the retaining wall.
Yeah.
And then they did the house, because it was outside of the
Yeah.
jurisdiction.
Except for stormwater,
Except for
which
the
is- yeah,
stormwater
right.
bylaw, which kicks it all in together, which,
Yep.
this is tricky. This town's one of the few towns that has a bylaw that overlaps with the order of conditions and.
Do you know Cohasset, it kicks in at 500 feet of disturbance?
500.
I mean, every project has
Oh,
to
yeah?
do a stormwater.
A driveway, a
Putting in a
parking
tomato
spot.
garden.
Yeah. Don't even think about it.
All right.
You had all these additions.
Yeah, they were all quick updates. You had one, Bill.
Well, I mean, we could table mine, I just, at some point, I'd
Well,
like to,
let's start, let's get them done.
well,
I had
you
a
know,
marathon meeting on Monday night, or Tuesday morning,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
A 2-day meeting.
at some point, I'd just like to discuss, what
You're
we
so
talked
bummed
about
you
at
weren't
town
there.
meeting,
Frank,
was the
listen.
GPS mapping and the new coastal manager, so how that is going to play into what we do and affect what we do.
What we're hearing is, it's gonna be a permitting software with a GIS overlay,
Yeah,
and it's supposedly a lot better than what we have, but I think it's gonna take a while to get into place, you know, so. But
And-
it should be able to be used by building and us planning, Board of Health.
and the coastal manager, this person is going to be,
This is a position that Tricia was able to get through, and what it is I oversee the CRS stuff, and it's gonna be a person that does CRS and then all elevation certificate work that Laura does now, and then work with Neil around what's allowed in coastal construction. It's gonna be a tough position to fill, to find someone with this kind of background that's willing to work for a town rather than a consulting firm or something, but now she can advertise for it, and we'll see what we get. We're gonna call the federal guy that we know and the state guy and see if they have any names of people they could recommend, and maybe steal someone from another town. But it would be a great help for the town. and it's-
Awesome.
yeah.
We give you a break on some of this stuff that,
Gonna give them Humrock.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's a full-time
No, no,
job right there.
Yeah, right.
You too?
Yeah, no, only kidding.
E2 Brutus.
Yeah,
It doesn't take
Okay,
long.
thanks. I
Yeah.
just was wondering how that was gonna play
Yeah.
into our,
yeah,
and obviously the
it's
GIS
on a
thing will
need-to-know
eventually.
basis.
Yeah, I hear you.
yeah.
Okay. What was the next thing?
214 Central.
Okay, 214 Central, these are the pictures that some anonymous person sent to us about a lot of big stones being brought in there.
Well, they
multi-ton.
essentially building a seawall?
Yeah, they did.
Yes.
And underneath all the deck.
Yes.
There-
And they what?
All right, so if we send them an
Underneath the
enforcement?
big giant stones.
Oh.
Send them an
And he
enforcement?
still has some out by the
He was
street.
supposed to come by tonight, yeah, he's piled up by the street. What happened was, he had a permit to replace his deck. It got wiped out in part of his kitchen in the storm, and it was like a year ago, so it's just getting done now. His seawall stones, they had sunk. I don't know if he has a wall inside that, I don't think he does, I think he just has stones. The stones had sunk, so we thought he'd bring a layer on top of that. He didn't come to us, and, you know, I think under permitting in the past, we've allowed people to bring it back to the height they had. But he ended up bringing enough stones to go under the deck and around
Oh,
the
yeah,
house.
he's built a
It's
big,
everywhere.
full seawall and then armored right over the top.
Do we
flat.
have an enforcement order?
Yeah, well, I said, you know, this is in violation, you'll be getting a violation letter, and I said, we're having a meeting, we'll talk about it, and he said, could I come and talk about it? And I said, sure, you're welcome to come, but, so now we'll just go the other route.
Yeah.
He offered at that day to remove all the stones,
Well,
and I said, you know, that's one of your options, and that would, you know, we'd go away if you did that.
I think this, regardless of whether he did, there's a disturbance there that he shouldn't have
Yeah,
been doing. So
right.
let's just get on with it.
Yeah, yeah, that's, couldn't get fit into things today or yesterday.
No, I
but
understand,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
let's get him in the works.
Yeah, I'm gonna
'cause-
hide tomorrow and do enforcement things, 'cause there was another one, 157, 159 Hollitt was, you know the corner houses that were just recently built there?
Yeah.
And I think it was Diamond Development that was involved.
Where did they go, by the way?
Yeah, so they saw all these names on the list. So anyways, there was a limit of work line, and there was some plantings done.
Right.
And
Yeah,
so,
before they start.
homeowner buys the house, never hears about an order of condition, doesn't know anything about this.
There were tree cutters.
I've heard this story before.
Yeah, but goes beyond the plantings and had a tree cutter take some of the trees down.
No, I saw the tree cutter there, and I said, oh, no, they're not cutting trees, they're just parking their driveway having lunch.
Yeah.
Holy,
So,
they went out there.
yeah, so the person said, you know, the person was in the driveway and I spoke to him, and I says, oh, do you have order condition? I don't know what you're talking about, I just moved down here. So I said, well, you're gonna have to do some replanting. He says, just tell me what to do, I don't wanna be in any kind of trouble. And I said, okay, so we'll get him out there. There was no stumping, and there was probably 4 trees taken, but there was some brush taken down. It's in the buffer, I don't think he got to the wetland, but it's in the buffer, so. So I can have them come in next time too, I could have both parties come in next
Okay.
time.
I thought on that split rail fence, there was supposed to be a signage saying, do not disturb,
Is that the first house, or is that both of them?
both of them.
Because the second one doesn't have a fence, it has plantings, it has
They were
bushes.
both, I do believe, split rail behind the plantings.
Okay, well, let's just.
Yeah,
get 'em-
no,
Okay, so they'll get letters sent, and then we'll start the process.
308 Central?
308 Central, this is the house right at the V where Central splits.
yeah.
And all the stone has been piled there, last year and this year. Last year, somebody might have taken some of them, or they might have been stolen, or whatever. The homeowner there owns that lot where the V is and the first house. He wanted to know if he could get them off his property. And we said, yeah, can you put them back on the beach? He said, oh, well, I have a person that can move them, but he wants to take them. And I said, well, we want to keep the stones from Humrock in Humrock. He says, well, the town put 10 truckloads of stone on my property. Do I have to pay to get someone to put them on the beach? And I said, well, you're in a tough spot. I'd like to talk to the commission, to Public Works, and, you know, I mean, we want to keep the material there if at all
Well,
possible.
they can't take it, regardless, they can't take it away. So his battles with DPW or whatever.
Or moving it to the beach,
Yeah.
there's an access there.
Yeah, he is the guy that will do all the work, but the guy wants to take some of it, so,
No.
yeah.
No, he can't take any.
So, all right, our position is everything on Humrock will stay there.
It's not even our position, it's the law. I mean, it's a
Right.
bylaw or whatever, but.
Right, but it's, you know, what has happened is it's all this bootlegging of stone because the town's not gonna pay for it. These people are gonna do anything they can to get it off there without spending thousands
Got
of
another
dollars.
20 houses that have it all in front of their house still.
Right.
You know, yeah, and what's interesting about that triangle, it actually, for a long time, it was high, and then I think like a year ago, it
went
actually
away.
was
It went away,
cleaned,
in the summer.
and then
Well,
it just comes right
The
back.
police ordered that, though. They said because of visibility.
Right, no, and I don't have a problem, it's,
Right.
just because he's across the street, we let everybody else clear theirs.
Where did
but
it
it's just-
go?
They probably put it on the beach, I don't know. There was one of the cleanups, like it all,
Yeah,
everyone was cleaning their yards,
Yeah.
that got cleaned, because that was really high.
it was. I
And,
mean, we were talking about, there needs to be a policy from the town. I mean, every storm is hit or miss, every homeowner is hit or miss. There has to be something in writing that, you know, once a year we'll spread them on the beach or
Right, at
something.
the end, like we talked about, at the end of the
Yeah.
season, not
Yeah.
every storm
It
maybe.
can't be like one guy he's got $10,000 worth of stones.
Oh, I
in
just
there.
drove down, and you look on the right side of Central Ave, what numbers is it?
Oh, yeah.
They've got mountains of stone in
There's
their
20
yard.
houses that have, and
Right.
some much higher than others, but, you know.
And some of them would like it in front of the house. It's a cost issue, or it's, why do I have to move it, you know?
But it's also a safety issue.
It is. yeah.
Because I mean, there were fire hydrants that you couldn't access, there were houses an ambulance couldn't access, and what's happening is, people can't get in their driveways because there's 15 feet of cobble, and now it's easier to carve paths into the marsh, and they're pushing the cobble into the marsh.
Right.
And, I mean, cars are all over the marsh because of it. And it's like, you know, and the town doesn't police, the people start doing it themselves.
So I will go into Public Works with this guy if he wants to go in there and have a meeting. Because he reached out to us and, you know, there's only so much we can do.
Well,
Recommend
I mean,
getting
is
it
it
back
just
on the
gonna go in
beach.
a circle though? DPW is gonna say,
They don't have money.
I think
We already-
that, I think the number that the guy should call, Sheila's gonna kill me, is 781-545-8740. It's the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, really, it is.
They gotta go,
Yeah.
I mean,
That's,
you know,
that's
and-
where it's gonna
Right.
get
Right.
solved.
That's what Kevin says. Kevin says, tell me what to do and I'll do it, but.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's-
one, we met with Kevin,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's the problem for these folks, is that they come to us, we talk to, but there's still no answer, because they've either got to talk to the town administrator or the Board of Selectmen.
And it's been literally every
That's
meeting
what I
and we
told
still
We're,
don't
we're,
have
we're
an
ready
answer.
to,
Get
we're
your
ready to
friends
cooperate,
come in
Right.
for walk-in.
We can permit whatever.
but
Get the
they can't
selectmen's
take it
meeting.
off they can't take it out of there.
Really,
'cause
get a
it's
bunch of
needed
people together and come
somewhere
in
on there, so they're gonna have
to
to
the
figure
next
that out.
selectmen's meeting for
Yeah.
walk-in.
I guess Kevin
I
took
feel bad because I
one
mean,
of
I
the
get posted to
selectmen
my
for a
door every
ride
single
down
day
there
from
to
the
show
neighbors.
the impact.
What are we
No, I
supposed
know,
to do?
but that's the
I think
only
they're really
place
gonna
that it's gonna
multiple
get
rides.
answered.
Sue the town for dumping on their property.
It's not gonna
before
get
it's over
answered
with,
by
'cause
us.
in the
We
meantime,
can't
you're
do
gonna
it.
get
All right, so after
Right.
308, so the Irving Road lots.
Rosemary?
Oh, sorry.
I'm
Rosemary.
sorry, I just wanted to say one thing. There's always an issue of people in Humrock doing things without permission. The more this happens, the more that's getting.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's getting so fed up with
Yep.
no response. I
Quite
hope-
frankly, so are we.
Right.
Yeah.
No, we've had this same discussion about 4 times.
Yeah.
We approve methodology, that's it,
Yeah.
Right.
is the
No, I
problem.
know that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it.
Yes.
I just hope we can rectify it, because, you know, it always seems like you see on the news, it only gets rectified when somebody's been hurt.
Yeah.
Or, you know, it'll take an ambulance that can't get into the house and a person dies.
Fire.
Or a fire, yeah. But the same thing is happening, you know where the Air Force Base is? So much of the fence and everything has fallen down that I was walking my dog, and all of a sudden, he jumps, and stuff just came rolling down the sides, and I'm thinking, I mean, the erosion's just
You might need
tremendous.
a new place to walk.
Yeah.
That's not the town's.
Yeah, I'd rather be talking to the selectmen than trying to get to the federal government, so.
Yeah.
Well,
What's
it's starting
the-
to be addressed again, so it's a good thing.
Well, I mean, they do use the road to get up there, why can't they pitch in?
Send a letter to the
Yeah, as I
president.
said, feel free to work on that. Let us,
Here's our
get
one,
back to us on how you do.
Number 3 Irving Road.
here's our one-term commission member right here.
3 Irving Road.
Irving Road, there's 3 lots on Irving Road, right at the end there, and they're owned by Mr. Goulston. He's trying to sell them off as separate from the whole toll project here. And first one is a drainage, so then you're down to 2 lots, and it looks like there's a vernal pool.
Yeah, there's no.
Yeah, we went out there, and there were vernal pool, species out there. If that's the case, from the edge of the pool, it's all the way out to the street, so they would be non-buildable. So I think, I talked to one of the potential buyers of one of the lots, and he says, well, he's gonna hold off, and he wants to contact Brad Holmes to go out there with me and whoever's interested, just to see if we can nail it down where the vernal pool is, so. And that might just take those 3 lots out of.
They haven't
being
been sitting there all that long for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, yeah, I know.
All
It
right.
is.
Contiguous to the rest of the property.
It is,
Yeah.
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 So, okay, the next one, Edward Foster, there was a house that was permitted and the wetland plants failed because it was even too wet for wetland plants, so they were gonna
Yeah.
dig a pond. And, I went down by there the other day and they're draining the wetland with a pump out onto the beach, so they will need, to get another letter like the other people we've talked to today. And then, Whitcomb Pines is an issue of
Town
possible
forest.
cutting on the town forest, and it's one of the residents who wants a view into the woods, doesn't want all
I went out there.
brush. And, so he's on getting a letter.
He said the town should pay him for what he's done.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh, I didn't
Everybody's
see
got-
that.
Everybody's got a.
Oh, yeah,
Hey, the best defense is a good
Yeah.
offense.
yeah, yeah.
Not only can't you find me, you owe me money.
Is his last name Bloomston? It's his grandfather.
And then, Candlewood is the restoration down at the end of Candlewood, and I went out there with.
Oh, you told me you had that all worked out.
Yeah, it is, it's going swell. I was out there and, so Walter Hewitson, met our residents out there, and, they have an agreement, and the, wetland is gonna be staked again.
Again.
And then he measured out how much of that it would be, so he's gonna, charge by whatever, the foot of the yard. and then there's gonna be a planting plan that he approves in a 50-foot, well, it's a 25-foot buffer there, and then the pears. If the pears are in the 25, he's gonna have to take them out. I mean, the original agreement was 25, no pears. Probably should have been more, but it's.
It was 50.
Whatever you
I don't
give
know
him,
where
he
you're getting
takes
that
more.
No,
25.
it was 50 buffer, but 25 of that could be pears. That's what it says in there.
Yeah, it does, it does.
Sorry.
So,
Whatever,
but
just
it
get
is-
it done.
right, it is getting cleaned up, and the whole wood chip issue came up again, and you know,
again?
yeah, again, yeah, so.
History doesn't
What's that
repeat
saying? The
itself.
last commission member to deal with this hasn't been born yet.
They haven't.
4 agents' names have been on this one, but, no, Walter said we'll take care of it, so.
14, 15.
How old's
This has
Walter?
been-
80, oh no.
Good luck to Walter.
He's an optimist.
This has been going on for like 15 years now.
Yeah, so,
Townway
but it's
extension.
progress, you know.
Townway
yeah.
extension.
You are an optimist.
Townway extension, is that on here somewhere?
Yeah.
I don't,
You,
I didn't have that.
you called
Oh,
it.
no, we're gonna continue it. That's
Yes,
right.
yes,
All right.
Continued.
that's
Yeah.
continued.
okay.
And then,
I did that, okay.
Sharon was gonna come in on an informal on Irving, but he didn't need
Yeah.
to, so.
Do we have any orders tonight? Do we have
Nope.
anything to
Nope.
sign at all?
Nope,
No,
everything,
nothing. Go,
Motion to
I think
close?
a motion to.
make a motion to close.
Wait a second?
Yeah.
Oh, we're just gonna leave.
yeah.
Second, somebody second it.
I second.
Second,
We're
vote,
good.
vote.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.